Okay. Hey guys, we're here. Welcome to the ProGameX.com tournament of 2015, the first one. It's great to be back hosting with these guys. These tournaments are always awesome. We always get really great players and some really cool teams. This tournament's definitely a lot more unique, I think, than any so far. We got a lot of different compositions, so we should be pretty excited to get that going on. The first series is going to be an RMP going up against a Windwalker DK Holy Paladin. And we're going to be queuing them up as soon as we can here, but I am joined by a special guest, Botar. If you maybe want to introduce yourself a little bit, I know that you're a pretty well-known tournament player, multi-classer in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, hello guys. I've played for Bleach Bones, all these guys here, in the last years. I was at BlizzCon, and I'm going to try to assist Super today. I'm not going to really commentate with him because I'm not good at it, but I'm going to assist him in terms of tactics after the game and just like trying to give some advice.
That's great. I'm really happy to have you here. It's always nice to have some help too. The first teams are going to be Keep It Original, which are playing RMP. Obviously, people love RMP still. Pretty classic comp, going up against Elite Gamer 2, which are playing the Windwalker DK Holy Paladin, the Windwalker Dream, whereas Botard labeled it earlier to me, the Windwalker Nightmare, currently. But we are going to be queuing them up as soon as I can here. I'm just waiting for one of the players, and then I'm going to confirm that they're ready. And we can get the first series started almost immediately. Can you believe it? And these first rounds, the round of 16, is going to be best of 3. If your team loses in this part of the bracket, you are out of the tournament. So this is very tense for all of the teams, all of these series. I did get confirmation that both these teams are ready, so I am going to be queuing them up here. The first arena, of course, going to be the Grand Arena, a wonderfully balanced one, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, the Grand is always the best choice. There's 4 pillars, which means there's like no unbalanced pillars. Like in 12th round, for example, there's 3 pillars, which are huge. And Grand is always balanced. It's a good choice.
Okay, guys, so this is the first game of the ProGameX.com tournament 2015. We have RMP, Keep It Original, going up against Elite Gamer 2, playing the Windwalker DK Holy Paladin. Who do you want to win the Windwalker Dream? I mean, can Lightning keep it up? He's a pretty prominent YouTuber as well, bringing Reels in, a pretty strong Death Knight on EU to his side. And along with Prominent, the Holy Paladin, going up against Artist, the Disciplined Priest, Aesol, the Frost Mage, and Ghosty, the Subtlety Rogue. This is going to be an interesting series, I think. Botar was talking to me earlier. He thinks the RMP is going to take this convincingly. I think that we might have some surprising tactics from the Windwalker team, but we'll have to find out here who ends up taking the lead. The game's going to be starting here shortly in about 10 seconds. Imagine something like a sap opener onto Prominent with like cheap shot, tunneling the Windwalker Monk mostly. Maybe swaps to Holy Pally if he bubbles really early in the game, but I would imagine tunneling the Windwalker for the opposing team. Probably need to connect onto Artist, but let's see. They use the mass stealth. Okay, we do. Okay, we do have a problem with the UI here, so we are going to have to restart the game. I'm going to type to them as soon as I can here. Just trying to get a hold of. Obviously, it's unfortunate here. Our camera guys let me know that we're having a problem, so I'm going to try and correct this as soon as we can.
It's quite unfortunate since we tried all the UI stuff from the cameraman right before, and everything seemed to be fine. So that's kind of awkward now.
Yeah, and obviously since they're playing. If just let me clarify this. Yeah, there have been a few problems with the add-on in the past. I'm trying to get a hold of the players. Obviously, they're in the heat of the battle. They don't want to restart here. But if the UI is messed up for you guys, we want to make sure that it's good. I'm just trying to get a hold of the players here to tell them, because their Artist is down. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a win for either team. So we are just going to be correcting the UI here shortly. Neither team is going to take a win from that, unfortunately. Obviously, both of them were playing in the heat. They weren't really listening. I know, it's really bad. I know. We're going to try and make sure that that doesn't happen again before the doors open. But we should be able to get this going again here shortly. All right, I'm going to be queuing them up as soon as I can. Obviously, there's going to be stress. I was hoping that we did test it earlier on and it was working, so I'm hoping that it won't have any problems now. But I'm just asking if both the teams are ready. Obviously, no team is going to get a win off of that if the UI is not going to be working appropriately. Just asking if they're ready. Just trying to get both teams ready. Trying to decide, like, I think it's appropriate that we keep the score 0-0, even though obviously both the teams were playing it. I was trying to contact them ahead of time, but we need to have a little bit quicker notification to try and get that. Okay, I have okay, so we are going to be queuing up right away into the Grand Arena again. And this is going to be the RMP going against the Windwalker DK Holy Paladin in a best of 3 on the Grand Arena as the first arena. As you were just talking earlier, pretty balanced map. And then here we just need to identify if there's any problems so we can fix them as soon as possible. Okay, it looks like we shouldn't have any problems this time around. So hopefully these teams aren't on tilt from that. Obviously, Reelsin was explaining to me that he played the game of his life and played everything perfectly. I can understand that feeling. But we should be able to get this on the road again. And so you can see like the pressure onto Artist is very high from the Windwalker DK, so long as they can connect and Acel and Ghosty are unable to peel them. So we're going to have to see if they can keep that kind of pressure up this game. And obviously great Dark Simicrons on like CC or damage reduction cooldowns is really amazing when you can get them off. But this is going to be the first game, unfortunately a restart for both of these teams. But we're going to see where the game starts here. As Ghosty's obviously going to be using the Mass Stealth here shortly for his team and pushing in for a sap, most likely onto Prominent with an opener onto Light X. But they're choosing to play back. They're waiting to see if the AoE can pull them out. Now they're choosing to move in. Let's see if they can land the sap. There's the sap on a Prominent. The cheap shot here shortly. He actually got paralyzed out of stealth. That's so detrimental for the RMP's opener here. Now Prominent into the half ball. He's going to come out of that. There's finally the full kidney onto Light X, but not a lot of damage yet. There's the bop onto the blind on Prominent. He should be able to heal Light up here, and Acel actually stole the bop off, so he's not going to be able to be swapped. The Artist taking quite a bit of damage here, dipping to about half HP, but he's managed to kite away, and Light X just can't connect. He's using all of his rolls. Nice paralyze. It's going to let Reelsin catch up, and now there's the leg sweep combo, most likely into the Fists of Fury. There's the smoke bomb, though, from Ghosty to try and reduce the damage. Pain Stuff comes out. Reelsin not able to steal that. There's the Deep Freeze onto Prominent. The Ring of Frost lands out as well. They're trying to get the pressure onto Light. There's a DR'd kidney shot, but he still has Touch of Karma, so he should be all right here. There's the Fear landed onto Reelsin, a Silence onto Prominent, choosing not to, or Master just say he used it actually earlier in the game, so he's not going to have that. The last Polymorph finally coming out. He has Avenging Wrath. He should be able to type or top off Light X here. There's the save by the Light. He should be fine. Ghosty's got his Cloak of Shadows right now. He's trying to go as aggressive as he can. Fist of Fury coming out onto Artist, though, dipping to him about half HP. The Chi Burst follow up as well. Powered Shield, Saving Grace being spammed. The Paralyze onto Acel. He's going to Ice Block out of that and get the Deep Freeze instantly onto Prominent. There's the full Polymorph out of that as well. Now half kidney onto Light X. He's taking quite a bit of damage. Might have to use a Touch of Karma. Instead, porting right on top of Artist. He's not going to be able to get away very easily here. Nice Cone of Cold Slow here, there. And the barrier has to come out from Artist. The triple Fear is Fears landed, though. Light X in quite a bit of trouble. He's going to have to touch of Karma onto Artist. I like that play right there. It's going to apply a lot of pressure to him as well as keep the RMP off of his back. Now, finally, the Polymorph's being landed onto Reels, and they're trying to peel, but he's AMSing aggressively. The leg sweep comes out. Dark Sim onto Artist. Fist of Fury. This has to be it. Soul Reaper's going to tick. 100,000 HP, Saving Grace barely coming up. He's trying to dispel the diseases and get a penance off, but Light X gets bopped out of the stun. Prominent uses his bubble aggressive here. Pillar of Frost is still up for 5 more seconds. The pressure is on. Acel into the Paralyze. He has to Ice Block out of that. Going for the Polymorphs. He lands one onto Prominent, but is that the right moment in time to go for it? Artist is so low. 80,000 HP. He gets the Flash Heal off in the face of both of these melee. He needs to try and get a triple fear here. He's trying to move for it, but he's Fist of Fury. This could be the end for him. 40,000 HP, 20,000 HP. He's going to go down to the Windwalker Dream. Really well played, I think, by Light X and Reels in there.
Yeah, for sure. They had a really good goes, and they did really well at stopping the CC as well, except in the end. But then the RMP shouldn't even have tried to go offensive in the end. They should have just peeled and not waste that poly on the pally. I mean, at the same time, they did get pressure by polying the pally, since he only had Trinket available. But then it was a bad time since they had to play defensive, especially the Priest. He needs to assist with dispels. And they need 3 people to actually kill a Windwalker. It's not going to be enough to just deeps him while their healer is in trouble.
Yeah, I definitely think like that last Polymorph could have been better placed, especially because Reelsin used his AMS so aggressively. So to avoid Polymorph in the previous stun, obviously. But I think they definitely played really well to be able to stick to him like that, even through a Rogue and a Mage. I feel like it's on the Mage's back to kind of negate that kind of pressure, though. Like, just more Polymorphs, really, is what I would like to see from Keep It Original.
To be honest with you, I think that I played a lot of RMD this season, and with RMD, if you channel the Paladin, you have a really good chance of winning, since it makes it easier for especially for the Mage, that he can just CC the DPS while they're trying to go on their Priest. Especially when they're going on Priest, it's kind of easy for the Mage to CC them, if they go on the Paladin, since they can cross CC with Kidney, and then a Poly and D-Priest on the DPS, or Nova even. And that would make the Priest a less viable target if they actually go on the Pally, so the DPS are always, polyable. Yeah. And the Mage can just peel them off. Yeah. Way more easy.
Okay, so we'd have the map choice finally from Keep It Original, the RMP. They want to go with Pulveron Arena. They want a bigger space to kite. Alright, so I'm setting them up. They did pick Tolveron Arena, so this is a much bigger map. I'm going to be queuing them up as they are letting me know that they're both ready. And obviously I feel that Keep It Original, they need to just put more CC onto the Death Knight and the Windwalker Monk of Elite Gamer 2 to really save Artist's cooldowns, let him play offensive, because if he can't purge and he can't, get his offensive fears or position well, he's just going to be under pressure and constantly behind. And if you're playing behind as RMP, you're definitely not in a winning position.
For sure.
But this is possibly the final game here, as it is only best of 3s in the round of 16. So if Lightning and Reelsin can pull off another kill onto Artist, they will take the series and move into the round of 8. Let's see if they can pull it off. I like seeing the monkey pet here named Best Pella from Prominent. It's a cute little pet he has out there. But the game's going to be starting here shortly. And obviously I imagine the same kind of tactics, going after Artist, really applying pressure to him so that he can't get onto Prominent, land the fears that he needs to. He did actually get I think a few double fears and triple fears last game, so I think he's playing well. I just feel it's on Acel's back to kind of help him, assist him, so that he can cast and top himself off and get to a better position. Let's see if they can coordinate that a little bit better into this game here, which might be the last game of the series. The Mass Stealth coming out, they're going to be waiting for the Death and Decay, all of the potential AoE that can pull them out. Once that's gone, they're going to be moving in for the Sap onto Prominent, and once again, I imagine the opener onto Lightning. They're pushing in here, they land the Sap onto Prominent, the D&D comes down, but they get the opener. Instead, actually opening onto Reelsin. He's going to Icebound Fortitude, activate the Blood Presence immediately. He should be fine for the opener. Polymorphs onto Lightning there. I like these Polymorphs being spammed. Now they have Polymorph onto Prominent. The Icy Veins coming out, but there's the leg sweep. They're trying to counter pressure onto Artist. The Cheever's coming out. He's going to pain suppression all of this, but he's still still getting chunked through it. Now he's spamming the Saving Grace. The Aura Mastery Penance comes out, but he gets DR'd stunned on. He's still taking a lot of damage. Aesol has to block out of the Paralyze there, but the blind on a Prominent, he was able to sit that. He didn't have to Trinket or block. That's such a great position for the Holy Paladin against his team. Now finally the Polymorph's being spammed onto Lightning, but it's going to break. He's going to connect instantly onto Artist. He's in the Spectral, guys, but he does manage to get AoE'd out. Now he's in the Paralyze. Rielzen's going to catch up to him. Now the Hamstring's coming out. He's going to be taking quite a bit of damage. Has to dispel. Prominent bubbles offensively here to try and keep his team onto the Priest. I kind of like this play a little bit, but it's definitely risky. He still has his Aura Mastery and his Trinket, but his Avenging Wrath is fading. Ghosty with the evasion, trying to avoid any potential swaps. Artist still taking quite a bit of damage. The cheap shot coming out on Lightning. He's going to Nimble Brew out of that to try and connect to Artist. There's finally the full leg sweep. He has his Trinket, but he's choosing not to. I can't imagine why. Now the Hurricane strikes full Strangler. He has to Trinket immediately. Saving Grace is being spammed desperately, but he gets locked out, I believe, on the Penance there. He has the Spectral, guys. He's locked out. Soul Reaper comes off. He gets paralyzed. Is there any more CC follow-up? I don't believe so. He's going to be able to top himself here shortly. There's the Fist of Fury, but a Polymorph onto Prominent. Out of that, he lands the full Fear. Reels in Lichborns aggressively. Light does manage to break the damage there. The Ice Novas are coming out, but there's no pressure. Artist is in so much trouble. The Kidney Shot comes out. The Polymorph onto Lightning. Finally, he gets locked out on the Penance, though. He's going to go down. 19,000 AMS offensive. Artist is going to fall. The RMP is going to lose the series to Lightning, Rielzen, and Prominent. Elite Gamer 2 taking that series convincingly.
Yeah, as I said before, I think it's a huge problem that they did not CC the Windwalker and the DK enough so that their Priest can actually go offensive and help them with the kill. I think as two people, they can't finish them fast enough.
Yeah, definitely. If they let them do what they want, I almost feel like they should just go after the Holy Paladin. If we were going into another game, they should just go after the Holy Paladin, let Artist fear the DPS even, and Polymorph the DPS, just play more CC oriented instead of kind of rush down on Rielzen, because he obviously, like, he Icebound Fortitude, Blood Presence immediately. Okay, just talking to the teams here to confirm that they understand who is the winner. So Elite Gamer 2 is going to take the first series in the best of 3 2-0. They played really well, obviously, to connect onto Artists like that. But we are going to move into the next series here shortly, as soon as I can confirm that both the players are ready. And it is going to be, I'm sorry, pronouncing these names is always hard for me in the EU, so I do my best here. Gleb U Ego Komanda, which is a Skitch, and he's going to be playing Moonkin Mage, I believe Disc Priest, and he's going to be going up against Sho Ananas, which is obviously Jim Volkovich, and I believe Voltarius, playing their more common comp that they're known for, which is Windwalker, DK, Holy Paladin, kind of the founders of that comp, like the the founding fathers of that comp. I'm just making sure that both players are ready here. I do have one team is ready. Just going to make sure the other team is ready. Obviously, these series are always going to be best of 3 in the round of 16, and the first map is Nagrand, second map is Loser's Pick. I did get confirmation that both teams are ready, so I'm going to be queuing them up as soon as possible here. Just trying to make sure that everything is set up properly, and we will be able to get that game underway. It's another interesting matchup, you know, like Cleave versus Caster Cleave. Like, can the Caster Cleave control them long enough to secure the kill later in the game, obviously, because it can be harder to rush them down. But I think Jim is going to play very offensive in this matchup, but we'll have to wait and see here shortly. I'm going to be queuing them up here on the Grand Arena. Both of the teams have given me the ready. We should be able to start this best of 3. The war game request is sent out. Let's hope that it works. We are queued up for the Grand Arena. It does work. Thank the Lord of WoW Arena for this gift today. Who do you expect to win, Botar?
In my opinion, I think that Jim should win by just applying pressure on the Pharaoh and the Pally. And just use everything defensive. Try to go into dampening, because then their comp actually shines in dampening if they can live that long. I think for the mage team, it's really hard to kill them, since there's no viable target for them. Pellies are really hard to kill, especially as a mage team, except it's R&B obviously. Yeah. And monks have a lot of stuff, DKs have a lot of stuff, and if they go on the DPS, which they probably have to, I mean, okay, a monk takes a lot of damage, but at the same time, it's very easy to rotate CDs with the Windwalker or DK, because they have a lot of stuff themselves, plus the additional Pelly CDs.
Yeah, I'm imagining that Voltarius and Volkovich are both going to be kind of rotted down, like swapping between them depending on positioning. If Jim plays really well defensively, doesn't get CC'd as much, and Voltarius saves his Tiger's Lust for the Solar Beam of his Skitch, they don't really have a lot of CC, not to mention his own Aura Mastery. And they just have a lot of ways out of the crowd control. But Skitch just in the center of the map, going to be throwing out some early Cyclones, actually. He's going to get locked out on that. Go for the Star Surge there. He's trying to throw some damage onto Voltarius. He gets put into the full Hodge, but it's dispelled by Jim before the Deep Freeze. So the Polymorph is landed onto Jim, but they're swapping over to Jimmy Powder, doing quite a lot of damage into this Pet Stun. He is playing Unholy. There's the Avenging Wrath having to be popped there. He's going to be topped off. The Solar Beam is landed onto Jim, wondering why this isn't getting broken by the Tiger's Lust or Master. He's choosing to sit that. His team is completely fine for now. The Paralyze onto the Mage and the Hodge onto a Skitch, but Jimmy Powder is taking so much damage. He's going to get the Word of Glory, but he gets Pet Stunned on it again. He's going for the Flash of Light. He doesn't have any Aura Mastery left. He has his Trinket and his Bubble to his name. Clones and Polymorphs being spammed onto Volkovich and Voltarius are what is saving Jimmy Powder right now. He needs to kind of position away from Jim though, and kind of drag Jim to the center of the map so he can get CC onto him. Voltarius is going to get dispelled out of that Hodge, and as well as the sack from Jim, just trying to reduce any damage. Voltarius even playing defensive back here, just waiting for the stun rotation to come up. And now the clone onto Jim. He's going to be coming out. There's the Paralyze onto a Skitch, the Asphyxiate onto Jimmy Powder. This is the stun combo I was talking about. The AMS offensively. There's the DR leg sweep as well. He's dipping into about half HP. The Gargoyle comes out. A Skitch with the nice stampeding roar there, giving Jimmy Powder quite a lot of space between the melee here. He had to actually use his cloak there, Voltarius. Now he's in the full Hodge. He still has his Touch of Karma, so he's not going to be in a lot of trouble like Botar was saying. If he rotates his cooldown, he's going to be okay. Now the clone onto a Skitch was actually stolen onto Jim, and he actually had to trinket that. Now he's into the Paralyze. Jimmy Powder has to use his shield wall, but it's going to be fading here shortly, and when that stun combination comes out, there it is. The full Asphyxiate comes out, the AMS aggressive. Voltarius is doing as much damage as he can here, actually choosing to play defensive and spam some healing surges. He really should have been connecting, I feel, in that stun rotation. The Denounce is coming out from Jim. He gets Deep Freeze into the full poly now with the clone on Voltarius, but this Mage Boomkin Pally just isn't doing any damage. They need to get some pressure onto something here because Jimmy Powder is in quite a bit of trouble. Now the Hodge coming out there. It's going to land, but I believe it got dispelled. The clone onto Jim. There's the damage finally onto Voltarius. Actually going to Solar Beam onto him. He's going to get the save by the Light proc. He still has Karma, though. As long as he doesn't throw it into a bop or something, Skitch gets locked out on that Cyclone defensively there, and now he's into the full Hodge. There's the full Asphyxiate onto Jimmy Powder. He's going to Trinket and Freedom, get out of there immediately with the Avenging Wrath. That should be enough to top him, but the Denounce is kind of preventing him from crit healing. There's the Breath of Cindergosa. It's going to proc the save by the Light. He's just using Freedom and running through the center of the map. I mean, it gives his team free reign to CC, but Jim's able to position very well back here defensively and keep his team topped. And like you were saying, you feel this DK Windwalker has the advantage in dampening. They definitely feel like they're playing like that. Voltarius constantly pulling back, using the Surging Miss even behind this pillar, laying his port down constantly, trying not to get caught out of position because he doesn't have, actually has his Diffuse Magic and his Touch of Karma, so he should be okay to go offensive. Now the clone onto Volkovich. It's only going to be short. He's going to come out of that. Now into the Entangling Roots. Jim trying to play positionally defensive right now in the back, and he's doing a good job so far. The Hodge onto a Skitch. They need cross CC though. Jimmy Powder's just going to get him out of that, and now he goes for the clone onto Jim, but he Dark Simmed it and he throws it right back at him. There's the Asphyxiate onto Jimmy Powder. Probably a Paralyze onto a Skitch out of that to stop the clone. There's the Paralyze. Jimmy Powder could be in a bit of trouble. He's into the Pet Stun. The Denounce is even coming out from Jim, but now he's into the full poly. A clone onto Voltarius. Thankfully, Volkovich with the AMS should be sitting comfortably here, and Jimmy Powder is still taking quite a bit of damage, but until we move into dampening, as long as both these teams play defensively, I don't see a lot of action coming as far as like a bubble needing to be used. But actually the Diffuse Magic used preemptively before that Hodge by Voltarius, that was a good Cloak of Shadows there by him to avoid all that magic damage. The Polymorph onto Volkovich now, not going to be able to dispel it until the clone runs out. Now the Deep Freeze onto Jim. Is there any CC follow-up? The Asphyx onto Jimmy Powder. The polys are getting spammed, but they need to spam them onto Volkovich and peel for that Asphyxiate. Another Stampeding Roar coming out for Jimmy Powder, trying to drag the melee across the map, and he's kind of holding them in the center for damage, but I just don't see it anything getting accomplished. Voltarius still has his Touch of Karma. I mean, he's getting chunked here in the bash, but he's not taking that much damage just yet, and the Aura Mastery from Jim Jim means that he's going to be able to play aggressive onto Jimmy Powder. He's using the freedom. There's the second Avenging Wrath, or sorry, the third probably this game being used. He does get gripped on his cast, but I believe he fakes some interrupts there. He's going to be able to top himself off. There's the Touch of Karma. Gets bopped off immediately, though. The clone into Jim Jim. He has to trinket it because of that Touch of Karma bop, but the Zen Meditation countering all the magic damage, and now he's just going to portal back here, heal himself up with the Surging Mist. He's going to be just fine. The root onto Volkovich as well, now into the full clone. He doesn't manage to Dark Sim it. The Solar Beam onto Jim Jim with the Bear Form root into the Entangling root. Nice play there from a Skitch, but now he's going to be put into the Pet Stun to try and negate any more CC, but he does land the full clone. Voltarius could be in a little bit of trouble here with no cooldowns. He is in the center of the map. Maybe he should choose to portal away, but he's choosing to just connect onto Jimmy Powder. There's the full Asphyxiate, and the Breath of Cinder goes, so he's going to be taking quite a bit of damage, but he does use his shield wall to try and mitigate a lot of that. Jim Jim actually has to bubble here to save Voltarius because he has no defensive cooldowns. The Diffuse Magic is coming up, so he should be okay in a second, and Jimmy Powder might end up having to use his bubble here. 50,000 HP. He's going to have to bubble. Volkovich not stealing that, so he's not going to be able to get out of these polymorphs that are being spammed onto him into the full clone. But we are starting dampening here. We are at 3%, and the Windwalker Monk is going to have quite a few cooldowns available in his arsenal, so he should be okay. And Jimmy Powder is the one who is in a bit of trouble here, only with one pop and his trinket available. But he is in a good position back here defensively, with Cyclones being spammed onto Volkovich. The Mage getting locked out there on a Frostbolt, but it's not going to mean too much. Jim Jim just trying to play defensively as well and wait for his trinket to come up. But there's the Hodge cross CC, but Jimmy Powder trinkets and dispels it, and a Skitch goes for his Cyclone. It doesn't seem to connect onto anyone. He gets paralyzed on the next one. Jimmy Powder using the freedom. He gets gripped on it into the half Pet Stun. The AMS offensive. There's his final bop having to be used. His shield wall is going to be available out of the bop, but he's still pretty low. He gets the Word of Glory off. He's topping himself off right now. There's the Bash Beam onto Jim Jim. Are they trying to make a swap? It seems like they are, but it's not too much damage just yet. There's the full Hodge. Jim Jim's actually in a bit of trouble, saved by the Light Procs. DR Deep Freeze, 100,000 HP. He's going to pop the Avenging Wrath, top himself off. He should be fine for now, but he's still getting kind of chunked. He's going to get, sorry, there's the Asphyxiate onto Jimmy Powder. He's going to be getting chunked here to half HP. Jim Jim now in a good position, throwing out the Hodge as well, trying to get any CC he can, and the Mage going for Polymorphs. Not going to be able to connect onto anyone just yet. There's the Cyclone to Volkovich. He's going to trigger that immediately. Jimmy Powder has no defensive cooldowns available. The Denounce is being spammed onto him. Dampening is also stacking. As long as Volkovich and Voltarius can connect to him, he could be in quite a lot of trouble, but Jim Jim into the Polymorph. He has his trinket, but he wants to sit it. There's the full clone now as well onto him. I imagine maybe a Solar Beam or another clone coming out of that. There's the second clone being spammed onto him, but the Mage is actually taking quite a bit of pressure from Voltarius here, dipping to about half HP. He has to drop the defensive Ring of Frost. Not actually going to land it. Now the AMS out from Volkovich, the Hodge onto Voltarius, the Bash onto Jim Jim. Nice CC there to try and mitigate a lot of the damage. The Roots onto Voltarius as well. Skitch doing a good job peeling. They just need to kind of wait for that moment where they get Jim Jim in a CC chain to try and kill somebody. But Volkovich is taking quite a bit of damage. No AMS. He's going to use the Lich Spawn. Jim Jim using his on use, trying to top Volkovich off so he can go offensive on Jimmy Powder. But he has his shield wall again for the Asphyxiate. He's just going to freed him out of there. He's going to be fine. This Deep Freeze unfortunately DR'd into Jim Jim. He gets the poly anyway, but he broke it. He broke that polymorph. Now Jim Jim into the half poly. My mistake. He had sack up, and Jimmy Powder taking quite a bit of damage now. The Breath of Cinder Ghost coming out. Voltarius in a polymorph. As soon as he comes out of that, he's going to want to connect with probably a Fist of Fury. Not going to be able to get it just yet. Volkovich now the sack purged off of him. He's got the freedom on himself. He's trying to connect to Jimmy Powder, but he should be okay with the Avenging Wrath, dampening at 17%. As long as he can LOS the Gargoyle, he actually gets gripped to the center of the map into a DR'd stun. The Gargoyle is just going to town right now onto him. 100,000 HP, saved by the Light Proc there as well. The Ring of Frost is landed onto Jim Jim. They're trying to pressure Volkovich. He actually doesn't have his AMS. He's in quite a bit of trouble here, but Jimmy Powder at the same time. Both of these players are dipping really low here. The save by the Light Procs for Volkovich. Jimmy Powder still quite low. He has no bubbles available or his trinket, so the next stun could mean death for him, especially with dampening starting to stack so high. Volkovich, though, getting bursted, 100,000 HP. A clone onto Jim Jim, a polymorph onto Voltarius. That's the cross CC that they need to get more often. Jimmy Powder has to use his shield wall once again, but no one's connected to him. I feel like it was kind of a waste there preemptively on Voltarius' damage. He's going to use the freedom, go for the kiting. There's the polymorph onto Voltarius, Deep Freeze onto Jim Jim. He's going to land the full polymorph onto that. He's going to use the freedom to reduce the duration, but there's the Hodge onto Volkovich. He has to get out of that, use his AMS immediately to reduce any damage coming in. There's the next polymorph onto Jim Jim. If they can continue the CC, they might be able to accomplish something, but Volkovich is doing a good job defensively back on the pillar over here. I don't imagine he's going to be in any trouble. Like, the solar beam is going to be completely negated. Now the full clone coming out, but he's just hiding behind the pillar here. He gets thrown into the Pet Nova. Now they're swapping over to Voltarius, but he's just going to use his Touch of Karma and roll to the pillar. So as long as this Death Knight and Windwalker Monk can play defensively, they're going to be fine. And Dampening just stacks more and more in the favor of their team. Now, but there's the full Hodge onto Voltarius. No Touch of Karma. He needs to get the Diffuse off. He doesn't get it off in time. The Hodge lasting just long enough. And he does manage to get caught out there with no Nimble or Trinket and go down. That was really well played, I think, considering the comp matchup here from the Mage Moonkin. They just got the control. They caught Voltarius in a position where he didn't have any way out of a stun and managed to kill him in it. So really well played to actually accomplish that. But at the same time, Jim and Voltarius and Volkovich, you can't not commend their defensive play as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a really nice kill. In the end, I think the Moonkin Mage actually has a nice burst potential. But mid-game, they didn't really know what they have to kill. They just swapped onto the DK sometimes Pally, then Windwalker. I think if they commit to one target, they can actually finish the game if they just have always those goes with Beam and Deep and choose one target.
Yeah. I definitely feel, though, that Jim's team can come back very easily. I'm just going to get a map choice from them. It is a best of 3, so if they lose the next one, they are out. I would imagine Runes of Lordran, wouldn't you say? No?
I think for Jim, a map is really good where they can abuse the Monked portal, so he can actually like pre-port and stuff. So maybe a arena like Tolveron or something is really good, so they can LOS and go into that dampening, try to Jimmy Powder, just like play more safe. Don't go too aggressive. I think Voltarius just has to live. And they win by default in dampening.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they did that. He just got caught out. Like, he had Diffuse Magic, but he didn't get it before the Hodge. Like, there was a Hodge earlier in the game that he got Diffuse Magic up before it, so he wasn't in trouble. But there at the end, he had it. And I mean, he's going to live guaranteed if he gets it off. Even if he's at like 30,000 HP, 90% damage reduction, I don't think he's going to die. So it was just unfortunate for him that the Hodge, lasted long enough for just the last little bit of damage to squeak through. But I feel like they just need to just do the same game, just be aware, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, it's fine. We're waiting for a Skitch. He needs 1 minute just to get ready for it. So, but the next game is going to be on Tolveron Arena. Yeah, I think it's a good pick for the Windwalker DK. They can pull back, play defensively, wait for their moment. I feel like maybe they should try and stop CC more before dampening kicks in. Like, obviously you want to pressure Jimmy Powder, get through his cooldowns, but if the game's going to go that long, his cooldowns are going to rotate up anyway. So if you can just stop the CC, kind of, I don't know though. It's such a vulnerable situation. I feel like,
I said before, I think Tolveron is the best map to pick for them, and they did pick it because Tolveron has huge pillars, and it's really hard for the caster team to push in onto the Monk or Pally if they play safe. So like the caster team kind of has to commit in Tolveron. They cannot be defensive and offensive at the same time, like in Nagrand, because their healer is going to stay back while they push in. Yeah. Instead, in Tolveron, the entire caster team has to push in to actually get that CC they need, and it's going to leave them in a quite vulnerable spot. So I think if they just rotate their stuff more often, like the DK Windwalker team, they can get something out of that pushing in and just rape the Pally harder when they have to go for the kill. Because the Moonkin team has to push in, they have to get the kill, they can't just stand back and do nothing. While as the Monk team can just do nothing and win on mana.
You think so? I feel like it can go either way depending on the cooldown situation when dampening kicks in.
You have to keep in mind this DK is actually playing Unholy, unlike to most DKs playing Frost. And Unholy is really good in dampening. You have a lot of spread pressure. You the healer pretty hard. They're gonna have some more overall damage, less burst. While as they don't even need burst, so I think overall damage is way more important. So it's a good choice for him to play Unholy.
Yeah. And both teams are ready now, so we're going to be jumping into the second game of the second series of this tournament, and it's going to be on Tolveron Arena. Gleb Uego Commanda, which is a Skitch playing the Moonkin Mage Holy Paladin, going up against show Ananas, Jim Jim, Voltarius, and Volkovich playing Windwalker, Death Knight, Holy Paladin. It's definitely a good game, I think, by both teams. They peeled correctly, obviously, to survive that long. Voltarius and Volkovich realized when they were vulnerable. They compensated with Jim Jim's cooldowns. I don't think either team played. I think they both played very well. I feel like Voltarius should be playing Tiger's Lust, though. Like, the solar beams on Jim Jim seem to be detrimenting him. Like, every time I saw it, it sat. He always sat in the solar beam. So that extra CC is obviously going to put them more behind and potentially force a cooldown. So, but they've been playing the comp obviously a lot more than I have. I've never played the Windwalker, Death Knight, Holy Paladin comp, so they might have a different talent that works better for them, and they definitely played very well that last game, so let's see if they can pull it back here and tie it up 1-1, or if Skitch will just dominate again with the nice Hodge cross CC kill there later into dampening. But I imagine that this Melee Cleave is going to play pretty passive, maybe even at the start of this game, kind of just sit back, let the timer tick, let the game go on later as late as possible. And yeah, Skitch and the Mage are going to have to push in and play offensive. The Pet Nova comes out. He's going to dispel the root, actually, I believe, onto Volkovich there. He's on his mount, though. Not going to be able to connect to anything just yet. They kind of want to bait them in, like you were saying, and kind of drag the game out. Volkovich finally moving out onto the Mage. They're going to start onto him, try to avoid any of the early crowd control onto Jim Jim, because they want to make the game last as long as possible. There's the Paralyze into Jimmy Powder. Good cross CC so far. Can they get anything out? There's the Asphyxiate. The Mage could be taking quite a bit of damage here. The Gargoyle comes out. The AMS as well offensively. He's dipping to about half HP, but he's in a good position defensively here. Activates the Amplified Magic, trying to go for some defensive polymorphs. The Cone of Cold gets thrown out. He's kind of taking quite a bit of damage, though. Volkovich there gets cycloned up. He's going to Desecrate out just to try and keep the pressure on to the Mage here, who is still dipping pretty low. The Ring of Frost not going to land, though. He gets interrupted on it, and he does land the full poly onto Jim Jim, which is great. It's going to force Voltarius to play defensive, and this is the way they need to play. There's the clone onto Jim Jim, but they're not connecting. They have to swap to Volkovich, who just activates the AMS, pretty much negating that swap almost entirely, and now Jim Jim finally out of CCs, actually going for denounces here offensively, and a Skitch trying to go for a Cyclone as well, but he does get hodged on it. Really nice awareness there from Jim Jim to stop that CC, and now the Mage needs to go for some defensive polymorphs. He lands it, but he gets dispelled immediately. He needs to go for another one here as he's dipping to half HP, but he gets locked out. There's the Asphyxiate onto Jimmy Powder. He can't blink because he's locked on Poly, saved by the Light Procs, maybe even an Ice Block here. Jimmy Powder has to use the Avenging Wrath. He gets locked out on Polymorph again into the Fist of Fury. He still can't blink just yet. There's the Polymorph trying to be casted again. He gets gripped on it, not able to get any Polymorphs. Now Mind Frozen. I feel so bad for him. He's going to have to Blazing Speed, get some distance to try and go for some Polymorphs, but Voltarius is just right on him. He's not going to let him escape his grasp right here, and now the Polymorph onto Volkovich. He's going to get out of that almost instantly. Now the root with Fairy Fire, but the Mage choosing not to kite. Now the Freedom onto Volkovich. He's going to be able to connect. The Paralyze onto Jimmy Powder. Hodge onto a Skitch for the cross CC. Nice moves there so far. The Polymorph's now being spammed. Jim Jim actually, I believe, sacked that. Now he's into the full clone, though. The CC's landing onto him. Voltarius kind of taking quite a bit of damage. The Mage as well, though. Voltarius still has his Diffuse Magic. He still has his Touch of Karma, so he should be okay. The Ring of Frost is landed onto Jim Jim, though. No pressure just yet on Volkovich. Now the full Hodge landed. He doesn't have Icebound. He actually had to Trinket out of that to try and avoid any damage, and throws the Asphyxiate onto a Skitch, but they overlapped it with the Leg Sweep. Quite a big overlap there of stuns. I feel they need to space that out better if they want to secure the game, but obviously they're going to be playing for a later game in dampening, as both teams kind of lack that early game kill potential against each other. The Mage and Boomkin peels are amazing against this team, as well as Volkovich and Voltarius's defensives and Voltarius's movement more often than not to escape damage. But now the Hodge onto a Skitch. Jimmy Powder not displaying that just yet. He's actually going for a drink over here. I like this early drink. Its dampening starts in about 2 minutes and actually forced Voltarius into a vulnerable position. He gets deep freezed over here, but no CC follow-up. He should be okay. The Hodge onto Jim Jim, though. Voltarius might have to use the Diffuse or the Touch of Karma. Instead, porting away with the Save by the Light. Just going to heal himself back here. Really good defensive play from Voltarius to just recover here, realize the situation. Jim Jim now into the Solar Beam, and again, if he doesn't Tiger's Lust that, he's going to be stuck in that, but the Moonkin can't connect to anyone. Voltarius is just sitting back. Now he's moving out. The clone onto Jim Jim. They have to swap to Volkovich because of Voltarius playing so defensive, but he's just going to AMS. He's going to be completely fine. Jim Jim comes out of CC, throws out a Hodge onto a Skitch. Jimmy Powder now in trouble. The Fist of Fury, Breath of Cinder goes, so he gets polymorphed on it, but he's going to get out of that with Desecrated Ground, trying to chase him down. Saved by the Light. There's the full Strangulate. He doesn't have War Mastery available. This might end up being a trinket. No, it's just going to end in time. The Paralyze onto a Skitch, though. He's not going to be able to CC the melee, and he's still dipping low. He has to bubble now. The defreeze onto Jim Jim, but no CC landed out of that because he has to go for defensive polymorphs. Actually throwing it onto Jim Jim. They're going to go offensive with the bubble on Jimmy Powder, but Voltarius again just pulls back. He's going to be healing behind the pillar here. Actually uses his shield wall as well to try and reduce any damage he can. Jim finally out of CC. He's going to be able to heal Voltarius easily now. Volkovich into the full poly. Not getting Dispel. There's the Dispel, but instantly into another poly. Jimmy Powder's Avenging Wrath is fading. He still has 2 bops and a Trinket. I don't imagine he's going to be in too much trouble until we get a little bit later into dampening at least. Jim throwing the freedom onto Volkovich, just trying to keep him connected to his target. He's going to stop that Cyclone and swap over to Jimmy Powder. Instead, no, he doesn't want to get pulled into that vulnerable position. He has his AMS available, and now the clone into Jim, Polymorph onto Voltarius. That's the cross CC they need. Just a little bit more damage, and they might be able to force him down, but there's the full Hodge. Icebound immediately. Deep Freeze onto Jim. He's going to pre-freedom it just to reduce the duration of the CC. Now Volkovich has to use his Lichborn and AMS as a result. A Skitch going for the Bash Cyclone, not going to be able to land it, and it gets stolen on his Cyclone, and now he's thrown into his own. He has to Trinket it to go for a Cyclone, but he doesn't land it, and now Jim has his Avenging Wrath. There's the Gargoyle. Jimmy Powder has his shield wall available, but he's just going to activate the Aura Mastery, top himself off here. He should be able to kite Voltarius into the full polymorph. He's in a good position. Doesn't have to use any more defensive cooldowns. Having both of those buffs is what he needs going later into the game. A Skitch going for more Cyclones, of Voltarius is just sitting on him. Now throwing it out finally onto Voltarius. Polymorph onto Jim. There's the cross CC that we need to see. The Hodge onto Volkovich. Has no Icebound for it. He's taking quite a bit of damage from these Star Surges, but he has the AMS out of the stun. He's going to be fine for now. There's the Root Solar Beam onto Jim, sorry. He's going to activate the Aura Mastery to get out of that. Volkovich into the Root. Possibly going to get freedom. Now the clone onto Jim, though. Volkovich with no AMS, no Icebound, not a lot of cooldowns available defensively. He's getting chunked to 200,000 HP, but he's trying to get connected to his target here, which seems to be Jimmy Powder for now. A Skitch into the Hodge, goes for the Cyclone onto Volkovich. He's not going to Dark Simulacra on that. Now the Root onto Voltarius. Really good peeling so far. The Mage getting locked out on a Polymorph there. Instead now going to build up his Icicles for later in the game. Spell stealing the Freedoms is also really important. Now put into the Paralyze. He's not going to be doing too much. There's the Bash onto Volkovich. They're trying to chunk him down here, but there's not enough damage. The Deep Freeze poly does land onto Jim. He doesn't pre-freedom it, but Volkovich just answers that with his AMS. And now he's connecting with the Breath of Cinder, Ghost Asphyxia onto Jimmy Powder. He has doesn't have his shield wall available. There's the Pet Stun, but the Avenging Wrath, big heal there, but Volkovich now in trouble. Saved by the Life Beam, has to bubble, and this is where he compensates. Volkovich doesn't have any defensives. Jim uses his bubble to try and answer some of the damage, but we are moving into dampening here at 13 minutes left. We are at 8%, so this is going to start stacking up, and then this is where their decisions are going to start mattering more as far as positioning and defensive cooldown management. Volkovich just can't connect to Jimmy Powder. Skitch and this Mage are doing a great job peeling him. There's the Bear Form Beam onto Jim into the Entangling Roots. Not getting Tiger's Lusted. I imagine he's not playing with that talent because he seems to never do it, but Jim's going to have to sit in that as a result. Finally coming out, Voltarius seems to be the target of choice, but with Touch of Karma and Diffuse Magic, I don't think he's going to be in that much trouble. He's just going to activate the Diffuse Magic to stay offensive onto Jimmy Powder. He does not have his bubble available. If he can connect, it might be spell trouble. He's going to spam the Surging Mist, though, as Jim is in the full Cyclone. Now they're just swapping over to Volkovich. Obviously, with less mobility, you want to be going on the Death Knight, I feel, in this matchup. Jimmy Powder dipping to about half HP. He's going to be able to top himself off there, though, pretty easily with the instant cast. The Fist of Fear out of the Mage. Voltarius trying to split DPS here, but he gets cloned up on it. Polymorph's being casted, but Volkovich is going to AMS that offensively with the sack as well from Jimmy to try and avoid any of these Polymorphs coming out. The Deep Freeze onto Jim. No CC just yet onto him, though. The Paralyze onto his Skitch. They're trying to set up onto Jimmy Powder. They grip him in, but he's just going to freedom and walk away. I feel like they should have saved a stun for that, but he's going to be able to kite. Now the Polymorph's onto Voltarius. They might even have to swap here. Voltarius just desperately trying to connect. Gets put into the Polymorph. A clone onto Volkovich as well. The full Hodge now onto Voltarius. He's going to get denounced even from Jimmy Powder. Jimmy Powder feeling pretty salty right now about this Monk tunneling him, trying to do whatever he can, but there's the Touch of Karma. He could choose to bop it. He is going to bop it offensively with the full poly onto Jim. He has no Trinket, no bubble. If they can continue the CC and stick onto Voltarius, there's the Deep Freeze half duration. He's trying to do as much damage as he can. Full clone onto Jim. Denounces come in. Zen Meditation. He needs to Typhoon or stop it. He's not stopping the Zen Med, so he's going to be able to survive the Avenging Wrath and saved by the Light Procs onto Voltarius. And now Jimmy Powder taking quite a bit of damage from Volkovich. I don't imagine him dying to just Volkovich. And now the Polymorph's even coming out. The Bear Form Wild Charge Route into the full clone. They've peeled the swap onto Jimmy Powder. His bubble's coming up in 30 seconds. So long as Jimmy Powder plays defensive here, it's definitely the Windwalker's team on the back foot. Now the clone's onto Voltarius. There's the full Polymorph. Volkovich kind of vulnerable in the middle of the map. Going to answer the Polymorph with AMS, but he's getting killed through it. He has to use the Icebound Fortitude. He activates the Gargoyle. He's trying to counter pressure whoever he can. Right now it seems to be a Skitch, as he does have to cross the entire map, and Jimmy Powder's just drinking in the meantime. If he gets full mana here, it could spell trouble for the Windwalker team. Gargoyle is going to be fading shortly, so the pressure is going to fall for Volkovich when that does, and now the entire Moonkin Mage Pally team have bubble available. They're in a great position. Voltarius with only Diffuse Magic, and he has to use it. at 100,000 HP here because Jim Jim did get locked out on his Word of Glory by the Solar Beam of his Skitch, but now he gets paralyzed on his Cyclone cast, and Voltarius with the excellent portal positioning gets right back to Jim Jim. It's going to be able to top him off, and they really just need to connect. But with Jimmy Powder's bubble available, it might mean the end for Volkovich. He has to use his AMS once again to answer the Cyclone onto Jim Jim. There's the Dark Sim thrown out as well. I'm not sure what he managed to steal with that, if anything. Just going to be attacking even the Water LA, just playing defensively this cleave. They're trying to wait till dampening stacks a little higher, but they have to get through that bubble, and Jim Jim has to use his Avenging Wrath just to try and counteract the 26% dampening. And Skitch going for the rebuffs, trying to increase his damage of his team as much as he can. Now the Entangling Roots coming out. I would imagine Voltarius still the kill target. With bubble available, he's going to be able to bubble the Karma. There was the Asphyxia onto Jimmy Powder, and the Mage seems to be the target right now, but I don't think they're going to get anything done. He has 2 ice blocks outside of a random global Breath of Cindergosa. He's not going to be in too much trouble. Volkovich seems to be the target of choice. He's spamming the Death Strikes while Jim Jim's in the Cyclone. I like that defensive play there. He goes for the Mind Freeze. He does lock the Polymorph, and now they're into the Pet Nova, though, and the Mage is building up full Icicles. He's going to unload those pretty shortly here. I would imagine a Voltarius, the Denounce is even being spammed onto him. Both Paladins in a good position for mana. There's the Deep Freeze finally onto Jim Jim, but he does get Pet interrupted on the Polymorph and then gets locked out on the Ring of Frost. He's not going to land the CC that he really needed to in that critical moment, and now Jim Jim's bubble is going to be coming up in about a minute. If they can extend this game a little bit longer, Diffuse Magic as well, I imagine that Volkovich is going to be the most vulnerable. Icebound Fortitude with a minute cooldown left. He's just popping the Breath of Cindergosa, trying to do whatever he can to Jimmy Powder, but Volkovich and Voltarius have just been unable to connect to Jimmy Powder at the same time in the same place for the entire game, and that's why they're not getting the pressure they need. Volkovich into the full Hodge. He has to trinket that. There's the Solar Beam onto Jim Jim. He has to Aura Mastery and freedom himself out. He's going to throw out some CC, but he gets put into the bash. He's going to actually have to bop himself out of the bash as Skitch gets locked out on the Cyclone there, thankfully. And Jim Jim's going to pop the Avenging Wrath, be able to top off Volkovich. Nice offensive clone, but I believe it was stolen, so Volkovich might come out with a clone here onto a Skitch. The clone being thrown out onto Voltarius. Volkovich throwing the clone actually out onto the Mage, trying to reduce any CC they can as they connect onto Jimmy Powder with that full Asphyxiate. He's going to pre-freedom it, but Gargoyle comes out. This might be his bubble or his trinket. He's being very greedy at this moment. He has no shield wall, and dampening is so high, he gets gripped back into the D-Art stun, saved by the Light Procs. He's going to have to pop the Avenging Wrath. He's trying to save his bubble as long as he can, but I feel like the only way they lose this game is if he gets randomly global. There's the Hodge, unfortunately overlapped with Polymorph, but Jim Jim in the clone, he's not going to be able to dispel it, and Volkovich has to use the Icebound Fortitude to answer some of the damage and crowd control from a Skitch and this Mage. Now the full clone offensively onto Volkovich, trying to reduce whatever healing he can coming in, but dampening is at 40% at this point. Finally, the Poly's landed, but he sacked it. I believe the sack might have got Spell Soul in there. That Poly's not breaking. He has to use AMS to answer the damage. And Skitch just spamming the Starfires at this point, trying to do whatever he can to Volkovich. And Jimmy Powder with his bubble, with his trinket, with a bop, with his shield wall. I don't see him dying anytime soon. Volkovich into the full Hodge. Jim has to answer that with his bubble because he doesn't have his AMS available. Jimmy Powder just going to trinket immediately out of that stun and start kiting. And Skitch gets dispelled out of that Hodge, goes for the clone offensively onto Volkovich, and it's also defensively at the same time. And I feel like if they land the CC onto Jim Jim, they actually can kill Volkovich. If dampening gets to the point where his Death Strikes stop healing for that much, it doesn't seem like they're able to do any damage to this Moonkin Mage. They can't seem to connect. There's the Blazing Speed. He's going to get away from Volkovich again. Now Voltarius taking some Star Surge damage from a Skitch, but there's no CC onto Jim Jim, and he's going to be able to heal him fine. He actually uses his shield wall there, Voltarius, and now Jimmy Powder, he has to bubble this. There's no way he can be greedy, but he stole the bubble. So Volkovich is going to have a bubble available if the CC continues onto Jim Jim, and now Jimmy Powder has one more bop available, but now he actually is in desperation mode, and Volkovich is actually just going to bubble offensively to try and remove whatever CC he can to connect onto Jimmy Powder. He's going to throw a Hodge out though, but he might have thrown that Hodge into the clone. Now the Polymorph onto Volkovich, trying to peel him as much as he can. The Hodge into his Skitch does get dispelled, but now the Asphyxia onto Jimmy. He has the shield wall up, but dampening is so high. The Fist of Fury come out of that. He's going to pop the Avenging Wrath, try and top himself off. The Solar Beam onto Jim though, into the full Cyclone. The Diffuse Magic used by Voltarius. He's going to be okay, I would imagine here. Probably Touch of Karma even offensively here at this point. The clone onto Volkovich. There's the Touch of Karma. He's going to bop it off though. Voltarius might be in trouble. That DR Hodge, 100,000 HP, is getting crit pretty hard by these Star Surges. 70,000 HP. Jim finally out of CC. The Starfires come crashing in. There's the Zen Meditation, though, reducing all that damage. But he gets cloned up on it. He's actually going to trinket so Jim can top him with that Avenging Wrath. But in the meantime, Volkovich has just been soloing Jimmy Powder. with dampening stacked so high. He's at 100,000 HP. He's in quite a bit of trouble. Saved by the light procs. He gets gripped on his heel. Soul Reaper's up. If Voltarius can connect, but he can't with all these polymorphs. Now the clone onto Volkovich is going to desecrate out of that. He needs to connect to Jimmy, but now he's into the half Cyclone. If they can do it, they might be able to pull this off. The full poly onto Jim Jim. Volkovich has no AMS. He has his Lichborn should he choose to use it, but he's just not able to connect. The polymorph again onto Jim Jim. Volkovich sitting in Blood Presence, throws the Dark Simulacron, trying to steal a Cyclone, I would imagine. Another Bob coming out from Jimmy Powder. He's going to be fine, and now Volkovich on the back foot has to AMS. He pops the Gargoyle. He's in desperation mode with dampening at 55%. The Hodge onto a Skitch now, probably a Paralyze out of that even. There's the defreeze onto Jim Jim, though. He's trying to land the Ring of Frost. He lands the Ring of Frost, but it's DR'd. He's going to come out of that. Volkovich dipping kind of low. Polymorph onto Voltarius, but it's overlapped with the Hodge. And now the Solar Beam finally landed onto Jim Jim, but he's going to Aura Mastery and Freedom. He needs to catch back up to Volkovich. He's going to throw the Asphyxiate onto the Mage, trying to reduce whatever damage he can, but he's going to Ice Block out of that. And now Volkovich at 100,000 HP, the Star Surge is flying in, probably an offense. No, the clone onto Jim Jim. Volkovich might end up going down here, 30,000 HP. Jim Jim trying to top him off whatever he can. There's no CC. There's the AMS. He should be able to recover, but dampening's so high at this point. Jim Jim's got a lot of work ahead of him. There's the Bark Skin from a Skitch. They're actually trying to swap over to him, but he's just going to activate that Bark Skin like I was saying. There's the Fist of Fury. It's not accomplishing anything. The Hodge onto Volkovich. Jim Jim has to use his Avenging Wrath to answer that. Now the Fix finally onto Jimmy Powder, but he's just going to trinket out of that immediately. No AMS for about 20 seconds, but this is spectacular at this point to imagine that 60% dampening for both of these teams. Obviously with Mage and Balanced Druid control and Holy Paladin defensiveness, they can last this long, but at the same time Voltarius and Volkovich are spacing their cooldowns out so well. That's how they can last so long. But now Voltarius had to use his Diffuse Magic. He's not going to have that available. He has to Nimble Brew just to try and connect onto Jimmy Powder. No bubble available. He has Aura Mastery though for the potential Strangulate. There's the Ring of Frost landed onto both of them though. There's the Asphyxiate. Touch of Karma offensively. Breath of Cinder Ghosts are coming out. Jimmy Powder in a lot of trouble like you were saying. The later this dampening seems to go, it seems to swing in their favor, but now the full polymorph onto Jim Jim, choosing not to trinket it. Jimmy Powder might just end up going down, 40,000 HP, almost in touch of death range, gonna go down to Voltarius there. Really well played from both teams to elongate it, but I feel like, you know, this matchup just seems to breathe that kind of long game.
Yeah, for sure. Both teams have a lot of peel. They have off heals. The Windwalker Monk can off heal as well, by the way, for those that don't know. It's new since WoD. So that kind of helps out as well for the late game. And I have to say, it was a really good game. Especially, in my opinion, the Moonkin Mage team that looked kind of hopeless last game, except the random kill. Like they got really nice goes this game. They swapped between DK and Monk. When the Monk went defensive, they instantly turned back on the DK and damaged him hard and pushed them back, kind of. So that was really well done. But then the DK Windwalker team did a really good job at this game at swapping on the pally when they can both connect. They always like grip stunned him into DR stun, into triple stun sometimes, and then even strangulate him off because Asphyxiate becomes a strang. Because he was triple stun DR'd. So that was kind of well done by them.
I'm just waiting for a map choice from the Boomkin Mage Holy Paladin team.
Yeah.
I just need to confirm if they can pick the same map again. I don't believe they can. I want to go with my gut instinct here and say that they can't pick the same map twice. Right. No. No, we're not going to do the replays on maps. So we're going to have to wait and see what they decide to go with. Obviously, Blades Edge Arena, I don't think they want to bring the Windwalker Monk into that environment. Even Dalaran Arena has that kind of element too. I feel, Dalaran, you thought runes would be good, and look what they're going for. The Moonkin Mage wants Runes of Lordaeron. Usually, you know, the Cleave doesn't want, or sorry, the Caster Cleave doesn't want to fight the Cleave on Runes of Lordaeron, but in this matchup, it's the only way they can kind of make them vulnerable.
Yeah. There was some things I noted, like for example, the DK picked a talent called Death Siphon, and it's actually pretty good. It allows him to heal himself quite a lot when his Holy Paladin is CC'd, plus the offense of the Windwalker, so it's really hard to kill the DK. Not many DKs pick Death Siphon, they usually just pick Death Pact, but then Death Pact is also a Necrotic Strike. I mean, it heals for 50%, but then Necrotics you for 25%, so it's actually not that effective. Especially later in dampening. Also, I think the Windwalker should surely use Tiger Celeste to just break the beams on Jim Jim, which is very important because he always has the aura mastery, and it's a 3 minute CD. So that's only every third beam he can immune. But if he just has Tiger Celeste, he's basically immune to root beam, and he has aura mastery for some dangerous situation when they have CS ready, which would help a lot.
Yeah. It definitely feels like the Moonkin Mage team needs to kind of set it up perfectly, right? Like they're not going to get the kill in a situation where a cooldown is available or portal's available, or it needs to be absolutely perfect outside of like big RNG damage.
To be honest with you, I think the Druid team should abuse the low clones way more. They're not really cloning a low HP that much. They did it once last game and they instantly forced the Windwalker's Trinket. I think if they continuously just clone the DPS when they're low, to like get rid of the DRs on Jim Jim, they create way more pressure. I think they should do that way more.
Yeah, the offensive clones. Yeah, he's definitely doing that later in the game. So let's see if a Skitch can do that a little bit earlier, try and secure that kill a little faster. But the Pet Nova coming out immediately onto the entire team. Blizzard even trying to slow them as much as he can, but they're going to connect onto the Mage, just like last game, to try and reduce whatever early crowd control they can. But the clone being thrown onto Voltarius. There's the Dark Simulacron. I believe that Vukovic stole that Cyclone. The Deep Freeze onto Jim Jim, but they're going to be able to answer. They broke the Deep Freeze with the Ice Nova, so the Polymorph's not going to land, but Vukovic throws the clone onto a Skitch, kind of using his Icebound offensively here. The Asphyxiate onto Jimmy Powder. He's going to free him to reduce the duration as well as his wall, and Avenging Wrath to answer the Gargoyle. Voltarius connecting there with the offensive Touch of Karma, maybe trying to force a bop. There's the bop, so he's going to be in Forbearance. Maybe they're trying to go for an early kill with that. Voltarius immediately pulling out. I think that's their strategy. They get the Forbearance, they're going to wait for the stun, try and go back in, but the stun DR I imagine is the same duration as Forbearance. I don't think they can accomplish that, but the Avenging Wrath is still up. He's going to be fine for now. The Gargoyle is going to fade here shortly. There's the Pet Stun though, the Fist of Fury onto the Mage. They're actually split DPSing quite a significant amount. There's the Paralyze onto a Skitch, trying to negate whatever Cyclones he's throwing out. Jim Jim now is into the Deep Freeze. Let's see if the Polymorph can land. The Blink and Polymorph do land onto Jim Jim. Voltarius could be in a bit of trouble, but he's already in the back line here, locking down the Mage, trying to prevent the repolys, but he's not going to be able to. Has to pull away. Actually going offensive here. I feel like this is maybe a bit of a mistake. Jimmy Powder trinkets out of the stun immediately. Now the Polymorph onto Volkovic. Damage onto Voltarius. Star Surges come crashing in there. Voltarius finally realizing how dire the situation is. Just going to pour it away. Jim Jim's going to be able to top him off with the remaining amount of time of his Avenging Wrath. But now the Paralyze onto a Skitch. I like these Paralyzes. I feel like he should be doing these more just to stop the CC from a Skitch. And now the Cyclone is landed onto Voltarius, though. He's not going to have the Paralyze available. There's the Bear Form root onto Volkovic, trying to peel for Jimmy Powder here. The Paralyze onto the Mage. He's going to trigger immediately to go for a Polymorph onto Voltarius. And now the Asphyxiate onto Jimmy Powder with no shield wall available, I don't believe, so he could be in a bit of trouble here. He's going to come out of the stun, top himself off. There's actually the Pet Kick interrupt from Volkovic's Pet onto the clone of his Skitch, now chained into the Hodge. So this is a good CC chain onto his Skitch so far, but he does manage to get the clone finally out of it, and the Polymorph onto Volkovic, who's going to Desecrate out of that immediately. There's the Pet Stun, offensive Touch of Karma once again. He's actually just using that Karma almost on cooldown to try and get pressure. There's the Solar Beam, though. Kind of wasted a little bit there. It doesn't seem to connect onto anyone. Maybe trying to prevent the diffuse magic, but Voltarius just going to portal away, activate the Zen Meditation, and that bash on Jim Jim is basically canceled out from that. He's spamming Starfire into the Zen Med. I almost think he should have just cloned it offensively like we were talking about and kept him low HP, waited for the CC. There's the clone onto Voltarius landing now, but Jim Jim not in any trouble just yet. Deep Freeze is available should this mage decide to go for it. He's pushing in over the tomb. I'd imagine soon the Deep Freeze Polymorph coming out or Ring of Frost. So Voltarius is sitting on the mage. There's the clone onto the Mage. Now they're going to connect onto Jimmy Powder. Asphyxiate comes out. He's going to use his shield wall immediately. Breath of Cindergosa freedoms Volkovic out of that Bear Form route, and they're doing a ton of damage to Jimmy. He has to use the Avenging Wrath. He's kind of running in circles through the Ring of Frost, trying to get these melee CC. Throws the Hodge onto Voltarius. Going to trigger that immediately to stay offensive, but this Avenging Wrath is keeping him safe. There's the Pet Kick interrupt once again onto the Mage. Really good pet control from Volkovic this game. You know, a lot of the Death Knights are playing Frost, but he's choosing to play Unholy, and he does it very well, as shown in this series so far. There's the Diffuse Magic, though. He gets cloned up on it. There's the clones I feel that we need more often to kind of lock the melee in place, keep them kind of low, clone their defensives, don't let them recover completely. But this mage really needs to blink in and get some CC onto Jim Jim. He activates the Avenging Wrath here preemptively, but Voltarius again into the clone. The grip asphyxiate onto Jimmy Powder, probably into the D-Art stun out of that. Not going to be able to get it. The Hodge onto Voltarius to try and prevent it. He's actually going to nimble out of that portal away because that was a ton of damage coming out from a Skitch. Tons of Alkin procs, Rast coming in. There's the Solar Beam Polymorph. Unfortunately overlapped on Jim, so that CC is going to be ending soon. And Voltarius in a good position here behind the pillar, just topping himself off with Surging Mist. And if he gets CS on it, then the CS isn't available for Jim, so he's in a good position so far. And he's going to be rolling back onto Jimmy Powder. They're both connecting, but there's the root onto Voltarius. Not getting dispelled just yet. Gets dispelled out of the Polymorph and root. A bit of overlap, but there's the Bear Form root into Cyclone actually now from a Skitch, but he gets paralyzed on it. Excellent paralyzed from Voltarius, but now into the Pet Nova, just so much CC for him. There's the Hodgin of Volkovich. Just going to Icebound out of that because of the full Polymorph that was landed onto Jim. Now the cross CC onto Voltarius. Volkovich has to use the AMS to answer that, and he always does. Really good defensive cooldown management from this team. Not a ton of overlap, actually none this game so far. The Hodge onto a Skitch. He's going to come out of that just fine. I would imagine go for a clone maybe here. He's probably going to get paralyzed. There's the clone. It comes out onto Volkovich. He steals it once again, so he's just going to throw that clone back onto his Skitch when he comes out, and there's the clone thrown onto his Skitch. Jimmy Powder completely alone. Touch of Karma offensive with the stun. He's choosing not to bubble this. He's dipping really low, saved by the light procs. He's trying to be greedy and pops the Avenging Wrath Freedom, but he gets grip back on it. Denounce comes connecting in, gets the bubble up barely at 30,000 HP. Very greedy play. I think it was smart that he kind of calculated the damage, but he ended up having to overuse his cooldowns. I feel like he should have just used the bubble, answered the Touch of Karma, let his team play offensive, but by delaying that, the Touch of Karma stayed up longer, so he wasn't able to, or a Skitch and the Mage were unable to do damage to Voltarius there. Now the full clone onto Jimmy Powder in the room, trying to go for a drink. Volkovich completely aware of that, throws the D&D, stops that immediately from happening, and Volkovich has AMS. He should be all right. There's the Hodge thrown out from Jim, and he gets Deep Freeze, though. Does the Polymorph land? The Polymorph does land. He does Freedom it, though, I believe. It actually got Spell Stolen, so that Polymorph is going to sit full. Volkovich just answers that full poly with his AMS once again, and Lichborn even. Jimmy Powder trying to get a drink in the room, but he's not going to be able to with Voltarius just on his tail right now. Throws the Hodge onto Voltarius, just Nimble Brews out of that immediately. He has the Diffuse Magic, so unless he gets Solar Beamed or something, he's going to be able to get that off, but he's almost soloing Jimmy Powder right now. Fist of Fury come crashing in here. They're saved by the Light Procs. He paralyzes him low HP. He's trying to delay it long enough for Volkovich to connect. There's the DR to Asphyxiate. He's going to connect onto Jimmy Powder now, who doesn't have Avenging Wrath. 90,000 HP. This might be the end. He gets Freedom. He has to bop himself on the Breath of Cindergosa, but it's all magic damage. 40,000 HP here. Voltarius portals into him. There's the grip. That's the game. Volkovich and Voltarius take that kill very convincingly and actually playing much more offensively than the past games, you know, using Touch of Karma basically on CD just to stay aggressive. And that greedy play earlier from Jimmy definitely costing him the game, I feel.
Yeah. I really like that they used Karma like that, because the Mage Boomy team always try to bop the Karma or bubble it instantly, and they did. And by Karmaing high HP and stuff, they just forced their stuff, like the breakers, like bop and bubble, so fast. And then in the end, he didn't really have much left, especially like the bubble. The bubble wings problem was a big problem, actually. Like, he can't overlap bubble with wings, because wings are like huge CD. Without wings, it's really hard for him to start to top himself. Because if you look at it, in the end, he didn't get swapped to and died in like 1 second. He actually had time to heal, but his healing didn't do enough, and so he just died.
Yeah, I think it was just a greedy play. He was trying to see what he could get away with. But because that Touch of Karma was up, I feel like he should just snap, answer it with Bubble. Because it was Breath of Cindergosa, it was all their cooldowns, so why not? And save the Avenging Wrath for later. Save the Shield Wall for later. There's no way he can, like, there's no Master Spell, there's no Shattering Throw, they can't get the bubble off, so just making sure that the next series is ready to go. It's going to be Toxic Youth, you know, your former team.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing in here, and you were saying you think they're playing LSD2, we think they're playing Jungle Cleave, who knows what they're playing. The teams are allowed to switch their comps. I'm just making sure that people understand what's going on. Just trying to get the next team ready here. So it could potentially be LSD2. It could be potentially Jungle Cleave. It could be potentially Super Mario. I don't know what comp they're playing, because they can play so many different classes that they can really rotate to whatever they want, which is really cool to see. I'm just trying to get both these teams ready. I have one team letting me know they're ready. I'm waiting for the response of the other. I think they're just practicing, actually, even on live games. So just trying to make sure they're good to go. Yeah. Just let me get ready for the teams here. The teams are going to be Yola Fani Equip going up against Toxic Youth, and we're just waiting for them to let me know. One of the teams is ready, and the other team I would imagine is going to be ready here shortly. I see them in Tolvaron Arena, so they're practicing on live. Obviously, all the teams want to be warmed up and ready to go. All right, we're just going to wait for them to be ready, obviously, and it's going to be Yola Fani Equip going up against Toxic Youth. And again, possibly a Jungle Clave, possibly an LSD2 from Toxic Youth. And I'm just going to check here what the other team is playing. They might have been a sub-in, potentially. I'm not seeing them on the list, so I'm just trying to... They are going to be playing RLS. So that's going to be a blast from the past if it's LSD2 versus RLS. I haven't seen that matchup in like 3 years, so I would be excited to see that. I mean, obviously, maybe dampening involved a little bit. Just to be able to see the comps come back, though, is nice. What do you imagine they're going to play, LSD2? You're saying they play it all the time.
Yeah, they definitely always play LSD2, and I think they're going to play it again. Just try to live, and their healer. Try to go into dampening. LSD2 is actually a really tanky comp right now, considering Rest Shaman having double Link, double Riptide, double Unleash. It means that he never has to cast ever, and it's really tough to kill him actually.
Sorry guys, I'm just waiting for one team to let me know that they're ready. Okay. Just waiting here still for one team. They are currently playing a game on live. They want to make sure that they stay warm, stay hot. They want to play, but we're only going to wait for a little while here. I might even give them a countdown depending on how much longer they choose to wait here. Just trying to get a hold of them, at least respond. Definitely an interesting matchup if it is RLS going up against LSD2, like I was saying. I haven't seen it in quite a long time. I should be queuing them up here very shortly. I did get confirmation that both the teams are ready here, I believe. Just want to make sure. I just want to make sure they are ready, absolutely and perfectly, and I should be able to queue them up very shortly. Some pretty cool games so far, though. Definitely some interesting comps. The Moonkin Mage Paladin, the DK Windwalker Paladin. It's really cool to see how those more unique comps, less played comps, kind of show up. But I should be queuing this team up here very shortly. Botar, unfortunately, is not going to be able to join me for this game. Maybe join me a little bit late, but we will be queuing up. And again, the first map's always going to be in the Grand Arena. Losers pick after that. These are best of 3 for the round of 16. Both the teams are ready. I'm queuing them up here. We should be jumping into the third series of the day on the Grand Arena. What a better place to be. A very comfortable, sunny place to sit. And yes, you are right, Botar. They are playing the LSD2, Gizmo, Alpro, and Swapsy, going up against Ryman on the Subtlety Rogue, I would imagine, Doppel, the Restoration Shaman, and Arcasia on the Affliction Warlock. Interesting matchup, man. I feel like I have a blast from the past on my hands.
Yeah.
Who do you think? You think RLS, Tunnel Shaman?
I'm not sure, actually. On ladder, Doppel, Arcasia, and Raymond always try to play kind of smart, just peel the whole team, try to get decent setups with cross DC, and they're always going to swap and not going to tunnel one target. I don't think. I don't think it's the best thing to do either. So I think they're going to swap between the Warlock and the Shaman or something.
Okay. Yeah, if they don't apply pressure, if they attack the Moonkin, they do give them a lot more procs, a lot more damage, so it is a bit of a strength Moonkins have right now. So the RLS on the right side of the map pushing in very quickly here. Try to get a sap onto Gizmo, I would imagine. There's the sap. Opens up with the cheap shot onto Swapsy. I don't believe he's playing Blood Horror, so he's going to have to sit all of this opening CC and damage. Rhyme with the on-use trinket as well. He gets bashed up on it, and that's going to allow Gizmo to sit the blind as long as they don't let him sap. He Fan of Knives didn't broke his blind, so there's going to be no CC follow-up. Instead, the Shadow Dance swap over to Gizmo, but he predicted it. Has Earthshield up, but Alpro with the kind of random bark skin there. I'm not sure why he did that, but the Root Solar Beam being thrown up, but it's going to break to the dots, and Gizmo could be in quite a bit of trouble. He has to use the Battle Master's Trinket and Hellstone. He's going to be able to top himself off here shortly, I would imagine, with this Unleash Aura Mastery heal. Activates the Aura Mastery halfway through his cast to try and bait and interrupt, but he doesn't get it from Ryman. And now dots are loaded up onto the RLS, so they're trying to throw the counter pressure onto them. Arcasia taking the brunt of it so far at about half HP. Throws his portal down. Doppel going to top him off with that healing surge. And now the LSD2 trying to get the dots rolling again. And they need to get dots onto Doppel. Push up here. Try and kill his healing streams if they want to apply the pressure. But Ryman just sitting on Gizmo, kind of like I sort of would have predict from the RLS. And he has Water Shield up, but he gets cheap shot there. Vanish Garrote on his trinket. He could go down here if he gets the read. The Death Coil comes out. Alpro into the off kidney shot for CC. They're trying to take Gizmo out. He's going to just offer the Spirit Link there to try and counteract the Dark Soul burst from the RLS there. I like that Spirit Link, but now the swap over to Swapsy. The Smoke Bomb on his trinket there. He's stuck in the Smoke Bomb, and if he portals, I think his portal's not in a great position right now. The Smoke Bomb does finally fade. He activates the Dark instantly over to Gizmo. There's the cheap shot, killing the healing stream as well. They've left it alive, though. It's a little low HP. The Solar Beam has to come out defensively. It does lock the Haunt from Arcasia, which is going to relieve a lot of pressure, but the off kidney onto Alpro, probably a fear out of that. He gets locked out on the fear from Swapsy. He's playing that sack pet, so he has double CS, and now he has a CS available should Doppel go for a Hex there. He was trying to go for one, but he's throwing Flame Shocks out, man. He's going for a Lava Burst on the Gizmo. Fire Ellie's even out. He's going to have to gateway across the map. Doppel pops his Aura Mastery to try and top his team off to stay offensive. There's the Death Coil, but Gizmo in a good position with the nice Stone Form there to remove all of the dots. Going to top himself off just fine back here. Throws the Grounding Totem down even. Now the bash onto Ryman, but they need to load the dots back up. There's the Entangling Roots. A Sphere onto Swapsy. He did get locked on his UA, though, so the pressure is going to be lowering. Haunt onto Swapsy. It should be fine. I'd imagine this game going to dampening outside some major mistakes. There's the Kidney onto Swapsy, though. He doesn't have that Dark Regen available. Dipping quite low with the blind on Gizmo, but no sap out of it. There's Mark for Death, though. Double Abyss comes in. Garrote's going to land. He gateways barely out of range, but he's going to get Shadow Stepped on it. 20,000. There's no way he lives. 2,000. Fear comes out. 800. It's over. The RLS played that very smart, swapping between Gizmo as well as Swapsy there, I think, that game, and just took it convincingly.
Yeah, as I predicted, they always swap between Shaman and Warlock. I think a major issue for doing that is that they spread nerf strikes on two targets, and it actually means the Warlock does less damage and the Shaman heals less, and that creates some extra pressure.
Okay. One of the teams is having a problem with like an add-on or that. They did not have the Gladius. I tried to warn. Okay. There's a known problem, I think, with war games where Gladius doesn't work. So the RLS didn't have Gladius. Obviously, that's a disadvantage if you weren't prepared for it. But there's not much I can really do about it. I did warn the teams, so they're just going to try and update it or change their add-on to try and get their frames working. Obviously, that's a huge disadvantage if you're playing with no frames. I would imagine, as far as trying to track cooldowns, track CC being cast, heals being cast. So I'm just going to give them a moment to try and readjust the UI. I don't think we should adjust the score, so it's going to remain 1-0 in the advantage for the RLS. And I'm just waiting for them to get ready for the next game, prepare whatever they need to be able to play. And obviously, they should be putting on a better game if that was their problem. So do you think the RLS just takes it? 2-0?
I'm not sure. I think the RLS is really tough to kill for the LSD2 since the rogue takes less damage, has recuperate, and stops all their damage by giving them the warlock consistently. At the same time, though, I think it's key for the LSD2 to get more cyclones onto the DPS, so that they can push in onto the shaman doppel. And if the LSD2 manages to push onto the shaman with more CC on the rogue especially, which stops everything, they can create some pressure by killing streams, dotting the shaman way more, pushing for him. Because as you can see, like in the last game, he even lava bursted sometimes. So that means his team was not in trouble at all, although they had some spread pressure. And that is because they didn't go for the shaman. Shaman can just put a healing stream behind the pillar. It's always going to be full. And he can basically decide if he wants to heal or not. While as if the LSD2 keeps pushing for the shaman with clones on DPS and not fierce, it DRs, so they should always clone. Then they can create way more pressure, and the shaman can't purge, he can't lava burst, and it's huge because they're playing with a sub rogue. So they need all the assists to kill that they can get, and the shaman won't be able to assist for the kill that much if they push for him.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like the shaman could comfortably sit, you know, in the backs and even get those lava bursts off, the purges as well. But we are going to be queuing up into the next game. I do have a map choice, Tolvaron Arena. They want to elongate the game, obviously. LSD2 carrying the advantage the longer the game goes, so if it ends that quickly with the swaps the RLS was pulling off, then it's not in their favor. So they want to kind of extend the rogue, overextend him when he pushes in as much as they can, and force the shaman into the center of the map, make him more susceptible to dots, more susceptible to CC. But they definitely need to kind of rotate that a little bit more, I think, get a little bit more control of the rogue as well. But I am queuing them up for Tolvaron Arena, possibly the last game of the series, as they are best of 3. Hopefully not, though. Hopefully Toxic Youth can pull it back, make it a 1-1. Let's have a series on our hand. I did send out the request to both teams. Let's hope that it works. We're just waiting to see. I did get the request sent, so it should be working. Yep, we do. We are going to go into Tolvaron Arena, man. Very open map. I think it's fairly balanced in the sense that it's similar to Nagrand. Obviously bigger space, one less pillar, kind of has like that triangle kiting where you don't kite between one side and the other. You kind of rotate in a circle sometimes, depending on your kiting. So with gateways, it does limit you though. So you want to usually play around your gateways, but generally speaking, like good teams will switch their gateways to opposite pillars so that they can constantly not have their gate on gate. And I would imagine the LSD2 wants to do that. They don't want their gate overlapped with the RLS gate so that Ryman has another gap closer to connect to whoever needs to run away at that moment in time. But Gizmo actually has a significant amount of HP, so I imagine he's wearing stamina trinkets, wants to survive that swap as much as possible. But they do have a lot of CC. Like the root solar beam on Doppel, it will sit unless he pre-wind walks it or stone forms out of it. It will sit for the most part. There's no team-oriented abilities that will get him out of that. So if they can, I feel like they need to not dot Doppel, land the CC on him. Once the CC runs out, start dotting him, pressuring him. That way they can get some pressure. But if Doppel isn't CC'd, if he's never dotted, if he plays comfortable, he's going to be going for the lava burst. There's the sap on the Gizmo. Cheap shot on the Swapsy. They're going to open on him. Probably a blind out of the sap as well, I would imagine here. Choosing not to go for it just yet. There's the Shadow Fury preventing it. Now the Hex half onto Gizmo, actually. And Doppel just going for Hexes at this point means that like he's not under any pressure, even throwing Frost Shocks. There's the Solar Beam, but it's on Arcasia. It does lock the Haunt out, but I feel like that's a bit of a waste. Swapsy should be using the counterspell on that and save the Solar Beam for Doppel, because Doppel's just spamming Purge. He's dispelling his team. He's keeping his Riptides up. His entire team is topped. There's not a lot of dots coming out. Alpro sitting quite a lot of CC. There's the blind onto Gizmo. Let's see if they can get the sap follow-up. He does have Shadow Dance to try and land it. There's the Eviscerates onto Swapsy. There's the sap landed onto Gizmo. He might end up having to trinket. Swapsy has to pop the Dark Regen and his Hellstone. Alpro going for the Cyclone, but he gets kicked on it and put into the half fear. And there's the off kidney onto Gizmo. These off kidneys are really good. It's getting a lot of pressure onto Swapsy, and his Dark Regen's gonna fade. His Dark Soul's over, so his pressure's gonna start to subside. And Arcasia still has his Dark Soul for about 5 seconds. There's a defensive clone onto Ryman, trying to lock him down as much as he can. And now Gizmo has had time to recover. He's dispelling some dots. He's repositioned. away from Ryman to try and avoid any swap, and he did save his trinket throughout, so that blind sap not really accomplishing too much aside from pressure. Swapsy getting locked out there. He's going to be fine, though. Starting to throw those dots out after the lockout. And Ryman is starting to rot a bit. The RLS choosing to pull back, play defensive, see what they can get accomplished. But now they're triple Shadow Feared as a result of stacking. And now Doppel's finally fully dotted. But again, a Solar Beam onto Arcasia, onto Fear. I feel like it's wasted on him at this point. He needs to be landing them onto Doppel. But now Arcasia is just going to be throwing up. There's the lockout once again onto Arcasia. And there's no dots on the LSD2, so the pressure is on the RLS. But Doppel around the corner here is going to be able to top himself off with the Unleash heals, dispelling dots as well. Probably going for some purges shortly. Even now, Arcasia actually getting chunked there by the Haunt, Star Surge, but Alpro into the cheap shot. Ryman trying to connect onto Gizmo. There's the Garrote. Cheap shot follow-up. Shadow Dance is used. He's going to be doing a lot of damage. Even Shadow Step to the Healing Stream Totem just to kill it. And now Gizmo taking quite a bit of damage. He still has the Stone Form. I believe he even has his Gateway. He's just going to drop the Windwalk Totem, but he gets put onto the Death Coil. Clones coming out onto Ryman and now onto Arcasia. That's what they need to be doing to lock down the swaps. Using the Cyclones, I feel, in saving the Solar Beams for Doppel. Now Doppel with no dots is going to have a fairly easy time. And there's the Vanish from Ryman. He's trying to get a re-stealth over here. He does dodge the Capacitor Totem of Gizmo. And Gizmo dispelling dots at an inopportune time. There's the root onto Ryman. Windwalk Totem coming down, though. Gizmo trying to kite, but there's the Step Kidney. He's fully dotted right now. If a Haunt can connect, he could be in trouble. Arcasia with the Drained Soul. The dots are starting to fall off. There's the Solar Beam once again, locking the Haunt out. It's stopping the pressure, obviously, and keeping Gizmo alive, which is what they want to do to extend the game. But if they're going to pressure Doppel and try and pressure his mana, they need more interrupts on him, more kiting to pull him in the open, because he's just throwing the Cloudburst Totem out of LOS, positioning back with the healing waves, dispelling the dots, healing very efficiently at this point. And now Gizmo kind of getting low here. There's the Kidney. There's the Shadow Dance. Evasion, even offensively, to try and avoid a bash. But he does get cloned. He's going to Trinket that. The Eviscerate comes in. There's the Death Coil combination. Gizmo has to Trinket the Death Coil and throw the Spirit Link down. And Blind is available for Ryman. Should he blind Gizmo and swap, or even blind him low HP and trying to set up? That could be a little bit of a desperation mode for Gizmo. But he's going to Shadow Step over here, try and connect onto Gizmo still, and he has that blind available, and I imagine he needs to throw it out here pretty soon. Capacitor Totem thrown down. It's killed instantly by Ryman. Alpro canceling the grounding as well. Fear's trying to come out, but Swapsy gets kicked on the UA. There's the clone onto Ryman there, but there's no dots onto Doppel. Not a lot of pressure onto him. He's just rotating around the pillars, keeping the Riptides up. Arcasia is going to Trinket out of the clone, land a CS, I believe, there. Actually not landing the CS on anyone there. Kind of a waste of his interrupt. And now the dots trying to be thrown out. Doppel just dispelling, purging, keeping the Riptides up, positioning really well so that he can't get dotted by Swapsy. And whenever Swapsy pushes up, Ryman just going to swap right over to him, try and lock out the UAs. Finally, full dots are landed onto Doppel, throws out a Dispel, the Riptide, the Cloudburst Totem. As long as he heals efficiently like this, it's going to last a long time for the RLS, and I feel like this blind is being sat on just a little bit too long from Ryman. He keeps the feint up, he stays in the center of the map. The Star Surges are obviously doing significantly less damage because of that feint, and the dots are just constantly being dispelled. Root under Ryman. It's going to break the damage. Arcasia with the Dark Soul Haunt. He's trying to get something going. He does juke the Solar Beam, so now the Solar Beam completely wasted. Swapsy has to portal. He's still taking a bit of damage. Cheap shot onto Alpro, trying to lock down whatever Cyclones he's throwing out. Now the Death Coil onto Gizmo for CC. The full Fear landed out of that. Really creative plays, you know, using Death Coil to try and land CC as opposed to go for kills. I like that kind of creativeness out of this RLS so far. Now the off Kidney as well onto Gizmo. Swapsy taking a lot of damage. Blind is still available. That's the Hex landed half. Swapsy gets locked on the UA. He might have to gate. He's dipping to about half HP. That Haunt is still up. The Windwalk Totem comes down. Gizmo's trying to reposition to the other side of the map, keep his team topped. He should be alright. Swapsy not fully dotted just yet. Now the dot's finally coming out onto him. Doppel still healing efficiently. Gizmo definitely taking the short end of the stick as far as mana is concerned, and dampening finally starting. When both of these teams are going to start taking a little bit more damage now, obviously because of the healing reduction. Alpro taking the time to kill the Fire Ellie Totem, trying to reduce whatever he can. Swapsy with the Dark Soul, loading the entire RLS up here shortly, but he should get dots on the Gizmo here shortly while the opportunity is there. He gets feared on it. Now he's trying to throw out whatever damage he can. The Starfires come crashing in. The Solar Beam once again onto Arcasia. It's going to lock his UA. It's going to elongate the game, but there's no pressure onto Doppel. Gizmo uses his Gateway to try and reposition to the other side of the map. He's trying to make himself not available for a swap and actually going for a drink. A really good opportunity to drink here. Swapsy has his Dark Regen. He's in a good position. He can even Gateway back. And now Gizmo managed to drink to a position where he's ahead in mana. So this game definitely going to go much longer. And Arcasia now throwing the gateway on top of the gateway, trying to answer that so they can stop the drinks, chase them in. And the RLS just going to pull back, try and maybe get a drink off of their own, kind of reset the game at this point as Dampening is going to start stacking here at 8%. The Trent's kind of here disrupting that drink as well as the Wild Mushrooms, trying to slow them and prevent it. They're actually trying to go for the kill on Arcasia's pet. He's just going to sack that immediately. And he does lock out Alpro's Cyclone there, I believe, or Doppel with the Wincher actually. So that's good, preventing the clones. There's the kidney onto Gizmo, but it's for CC. Arcasia not able to land the fear, and Ryman had to trinket that full bash to get the Shadow Dance damage onto Swapsy, and now he gets cloned on it though, so that entire swap to Swapsy is not going to accomplish anything, and Swapsy now with the Dark Soul popped is going to start loading up the entire RLS. Cloak is available for Ryman. There is another Solar Beam onto Arcasia, locking the UA, kind of negating the blind onto Gizmo, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to sap him. Doppel maybe going for a Hex, not actually going to go for it. Now swapping over to Gizmo with the step cheap shot. He doesn't have Earth Shield, so he's taking a bit of damage, but he doesn't have any Haunt. There's the Dispel on himself even. There's the Coil coming out. The dots are getting reloaded by Arcasia. They're trying to do whatever they can to him, but he's going to pop the Battle Master Trinket. He's going to be fine, and now the kidney shot onto Alpro. It's just for CC though, possibly trying to get a fear on it. Swapsy into the fear. Arcasia going for the Haunt. The Haunt connects onto Swapsy, and now the fear onto Alpro. He's going to get dispelled out of that by Gizmo. And now the RLS is kind of on the back foot. They are starting to get fully loaded up on dots. Gizmo has done a good job dispelling his team and getting mana. And now Doppel's slowly falling behind, but really the action's not going to start until Dampening is maybe 40% even for both of these teams in this comp matchup. Now the double Shadow Fury landed. I feel like he should be trying to go for maybe more Shadow Furies. It feels like it's been quite a long time since one came out until that one, trying to get whatever offensive pressure they can. Alpro gets cheap shot on the Cyclone with that Shadow Dance, swapping over to Swapsy with the full kidney, but he's not dotted. Gizmo with a nice dispel, removing all those dots, and now the fear onto Alpro is unfortunately sitting even though he's dotted, and Doppel actually going for that Lava Burst once again here in the back line, and he can kind of go for a drink whenever he wants. He's got the Cloud Burst down like I was saying earlier. He can use the lesser healing waves. He can heal really efficiently when he's not pressured like this. And now Ryman also playing defensively here. He has Fairy Storm. He does get Dispel. He's trying to go for a reset, but that Trent is not going to be able to stop his restealth here, I don't think. Unfortunately, actually that Trent did manage to stop his restealth, so a very cheeky Trent there from Alpro. And now Ryman with the Fairy Fire Root gets caught out there. I believe Alpro picked up the Eyes, so Alpro realizing the restealth there, picks up the Eyes and pulls Ryman out of stealth, preventing any kind of random burst here. And now Ryman taking quite a bit of damage, but with the Feint and the Earth Shield, he's going to get cloned up on it. Alpro trying to throw out the dots on everyone, as well as Swapsy trying to dot out of that Cyclone. Now the Dark Soul from Arcasia, he's trying to counter pressure. Ryman trying to connect onto Swapsy, possibly Gizmo maybe with a Shadow Step. Doppel going for the Hex. He lands the Hex. Alpro needs to dispel that as soon as possible, but he's not going to be able to. He gets put into the Death Coil. Cheap shot onto Swapsy. Swapsy taking a lot of damage. There's the Smoke Bomb coming out, but he's not stunned. He's going to be able to kite out of that. The Garrote onto him. Now the off kidney onto Gizmo. I like these off kidneys. There's the Solar Beam onto Arcasia to prevent the fear out of the kidney though, and Swapsy's dipping pretty low here. It might be a Spirit Link out of Gizmo. There's the full blind. He has to trinket that. He's trying to connect back over. He pops the Ascendance. Swapsy here tipping kind of low, but he should be already. Gets kicked on the UA. The Ascendance from Gizmo should be enough to heal him through this damage. 200,000 HP. Ryman spamming the backside. There's a kidney onto Swapsy. No Smoke Bomb though, and Alpro pushing in for that bash, doing a ton of damage to him actually. No Feint for that bash. Starfires come crashing in. Feint finally comes up, and he doesn't even have to cloak. Doppel with a nice Dispel there, and an S with Ascendance is going to top his whole team off, and there's no dots for the LSD2. With Dampening stacking higher and higher, they really need to start getting the pressure going. Cloak of Shadows not even used once for Ryman though. Alpro trying to throw out the Cyclones, but he's getting interrupted quite a lot on them. Instead now going for the damage. There's the Step Kidney swap over to Gizmo, but it's not accomplishing much. He had to kill the Healing Stream. He actually had to cloak out of that root just to be able to connect with the Garrote on his Shadow Dance. But with Arcasia on a clone, he has to trinket that. He needs to get the coil out, but he gates the coil. He should be okay on the other side, as he did Hellstone before it as well. And Arcasia with a little bit of a late trinket doesn't land the Death Coil that he needed there in time, and Gizmo's going to be able to top himself off. He doesn't have the Ascendance. He still has Spirit Link, but with these dot cleave matchups, Spirit Link starts to mean less and less later into the game, and Ryman is just kind of riding him. There's the full kidney, no trinket available. He has Stone Form out of it, but nice bash from Alpro. He does dispel the Hex off Swapsy, so good dispel there, and now the Cyclone landed onto Ryman, and they lock Arcasia out on his Sphere with his Dark Soul, so trying to mitigate all the damage there in that swap over to Gizmo, and now his trinket's going to come up in 30 seconds. He should be okay, but there's the Garrote onto Gizmo, probably a full kidney out. I like the cheap shot onto Alpro to try and prevent the clones. Ryman doesn't have Cloak to avoid it right now, but now with the Fairy Fire root on Ryman out of LOS. He's not going to be able to connect. Healing Stream comes down, but mana is starting to maybe be a problem here. 36% dampening. There's the Death Coil, the Drain Soul coming out. There's the cheap shot Shadow Dance. Nice Shadow Fury onto Arcasia and Ryman, locking that down quite a bit. But now the half kidney, the damage is starting to sink. The Haunt lands. The Garrote's on Gizmo. Nature's Guardian procs. He has no gateway available. He's going to have to throw the Spirit Link down, and he does. And the Cyclone's trying to be spammed out from Alpro onto Ryman, I would imagine, but he gets locked out on it. Now he has to go for damage. He Displacer Beast. Nice bash on Ryman. Unfortunately, DR'd from the Shadow Fury. And Doppel is kind of dotted right now. He's starting to rot, but the LSD2 definitely, I think, is in a worse position. Arcasia has that Dark Regen available to kind of answer all the damage. He gets locked out on Fear, but nice Dispel from Doppel is going to remove all the dots. Haunt comes up, but no UA or Agony, and he gets locked out again on Haunt, so he's not going to get that onto Gizmo, and that's kind of the saving grace for Gizmo right now as he pulls Ryman out of LOS. He has Cloak, so he should be okay, and Doppel pushes in with the Aura Mastery, even dispelling the dots off of Ryman. Arcasia gets Shadow Feared up there. He might have to use his Dark Regen. Dampening is actually 40%. Both teams are starting to rot pretty incredibly hard right now. There's the Death Coil onto Gizmo. Cloak has to be used from Ryman. Alpro dipping kind of low from the dots. Swapsy dipping as well. Gizmo's going to gateway out of there. Try and maybe get a drink, but Ryman's right on his tail. He's used the Vanish, but he got Fairy Fired on his Vanish. Really good Fairy Fire from Alpro there. Now he's rooted. He's locked up. He doesn't have Cloak, and Alpro is going to town. But the Shadow Dance cheap shot, they're bombing Alpro. He gets the Bark Skin up. He's going to trinket out of that as well and throw a bash onto Ryman, and Ryman's in quite a bit of trouble. He doesn't have Feint up for that. He's going to get it up immediately and gateway defensively back to Doppel, and they kind of need to recover. 44% dampening is no joke for either of these teams. Arcasia as well going to portal back. The RLS trying to play defensive. Now they're pushing out the cheap shot onto Swapsy. He gets cloned on the cheap shot though, and Arcasia with that Dark Soul isn't going to get a lot done. I feel like he just needs to use... There's the Solar Beam onto Doppel. He's going to have to trinket out of that. Now with no trinket available on Doppel, they might be able to push in for something, but Swapsy is so low. Gizmo has to use the Ascendance just to try and top his team off. Swapsy dipping to about half HP. There's the kidney onto Alpro. They're trying to just stick onto Swapsy. There's the blind onto Gizmo. Can he sap out of it? Alpro rotting from the dots as well. He's going for the Cyclones onto Ryman as well as the roots, but Ryman's just going to vanish sap out of the blind. Alpro is in so much trouble. No Bark Skin available, no trinket. That's it! 20,000 HP, 18,000 HP. Shadow Melt Displacer Beast. He gets back to Gizmo to get the Spirit Link off just in time, man. That Shadow Melt saving his life. And now this cheap shot onto Swapsy, though. He has Dark Regen available should he choose to use it. There's the Groat, not going to be able to use it just yet. Now the kidney onto Gizmo just for CC, but a nice bash onto Ryman. Fortunately for him, he got Feint up. That might have been the end for Ryman if he didn't have Feint. No Cloak available. He has to use the Hellstone out of that. There's the Shadow Fear onto Arcasia as well. Doppel spamming the Riptides. He's starting to run out of mana. Both these teams kind of getting tapped, and Ryman definitely taking the big end of the damage from Alpro here. Swaps it with the Dark Soul. Well timed! Arcasia gets dispelled on the dots barely, but he might be DC'd in the center of the map. I don't imagine they're going to wait for him, though. He's kind of just standing there doing nothing. So I imagine that he did DC. And that's, man, that sucks. He DC'd right at that moment, man. That was such a good game.
Yeah, it was a really good game, and you could see that both setups are kind of equal, and the setup was really good, a really good matchup. You could see that only in dampening they could actually do something, both of them. Before it was kind of hard for either teams to push in because this arena is so huge, and the rest of Shams are just standing behind the pillar, and neither of the Rogue nor the Moonkin can really push in to get anything done. But then when dampening kicks in, you can see that people start dropping, and they can get something out of it because the rest of Shams have to start healing, like actually casting, when dampening starts and not before. And when they have to start casting, it means that the other team can push in and interrupt them and get something out of that, and just snowballs more and more.
Yeah, definitely. And again, Alpro, like, he used the Solar Beams on the Warlock early in the game, trying to lock down the damage as much as possible to get into dampening, but that one Solar Beam that he got on Doppel got his trinket instantly. It was like, I have to trinket this. My team is rotting. I have to trinket this. And I feel like Wind Shear and Counterspell is a better answer for Arcasia than Solar Beam.
Definitely.
Especially with Sack
Also, yeah. Also, I did see that Ulpro did way better on cloning this game. He actually CC'd the Rogue's Dance a couple of times, which kind of rated him really hard. Also, the openers were just CC'd by the Moonkin. Sometimes he just baits the CS by casting Clone for no reason. They CS him, and then when they actually need the Interrupt and Clone, they don't have CS anymore. Because the Shaman can never shock the Moonkin since he's too far away, and the Shaman has to LOS the Warlock, while the Moonkin just casts Clone. And I think that was really well done by Ulpro, just cloning that Rogue on the go so they need. and abusing the fact that they are the caster team, the clean caster team. They can abuse the range, and the rogue has to push in, so you can just CC him way easier than a Moonkin.
Yeah, definitely. I think like Ryman with the like off kidney shots though is something that you don't see very, at least I don't see very often on North American ladder. He uses kidney for CC as opposed for like kill damage on his target, with like nerve strike or not nerve strike, find weakness. No, not even find weakness. What is the ability? The 10% damage increase when he stuns. That's what it is.
Prey on the weak.
Prey on the weak.
Prey on the weak.
So usually like rogues will use that for prey on the weak, but instead he chooses to use his kidneys for off targets, and then Arcasia pushes up to try and get a fear. The LC2 did a good job like realizing that and stopping it most of the time.
Yeah.
The RLS is going to try again. Unfortunately, you know, the disconnect kind of disheartening them. Obviously, that far in the game, it could have almost gone either way. I feel like Ryman was at the most disadvantage, but it could easily go either way. Just letting them know they can't play letting them know they can't play the same map twice. They wanted to play on the ground twice, but trying to follow like more general tournament rules where you wouldn't play the same map twice. Just waiting for them to make a decision. Obviously, like I don't know. I feel like they want a closer map, maybe even Dalaran, where they can line up their gateway. I mean, Arcasia did take the time for the RLS.
Yeah, I think the RLS kind of needs that close quarters combat.
Yeah.
It's really good if the RLS can just push in without like pushing their shaman into the open field. Like in Tolveron, the rogue can't really go to Gizmo because Gizmo's just lining behind the huge pillar, and the same for the RLS's shaman. And so that means if the rogue pushes on Gizmo, their shaman has to come in the open field, and he's just gonna get CC'd with root beam, spam fear, and exposing himself sort of. So if they get an arena like Dalaran, I think it's really good for the RLS. They can be offensive and defensive at the same time, and it's hard for the caster team to abuse their spammable CC on the shaman.
Yeah, and they actually decided to go with Tiger's Peak, and that's a close quarter map as well. I mean, there are a few places you can run, but definitely not as intimidating as the huge pillars of Tolveron. Like you've got the balconies you can line with, but that's not really complete line of sight in some places. So I definitely feel like Gizmo's ability to go from one side of the map to the other was an advantage for their team as opposed to Ryman, like you were saying, where he has to overextend. So I think Tiger's Peak is an okay map. I have to see how Gizmo decides to deal with it. He did get a very early drink too, which I feel like helped him later into dampening. Obviously, it would have been much more awesome to see the game play out with somebody not disconnected. Let's see if they can keep it together. They did take the first game very convincingly, like really good swaps, tons of bursts, really well set up CC. I remember noting in the last game that Ryman sat on his blind. He could have blinded Gizmo low HP, try to set up on it, wait for the stun DR, like an old time Sam X kind of play kind of thing. I feel like he should have used it like that. I mean, I wanted him to use it like that. It's his decision, but I really wanted him to kind of blind sab, reopen with full stun DRs with no trinket. I feel like that could have been like a classy moment for a RLS kind of swap on a Gizmo. Let's see if they can get the pressure rolling, though, like they did in the first game. We are tied 1-1 in this series currently between the LSD2 of Gizmo, Alpro, and Swapsy, and the RLS of Ryman, Arcasia, and Doppel. And the RLS trying to push in here cautiously. They don't want to get pulled out from Alpro, who is also in stealth. Arcasia throws the portal down on this side of the pillar. That means they want to be offensive. There's the sap coming out. He's going to unbound Will out of that, I believe, immediately to try and throw some dot pressure. There's the bash onto Ryman. Doppel's just spamming Purge. He throws Healing Stream down, but he got a lot of the buffs off. Gizmo's going to have to gateway, and again, he's kiting all the way across the map, dragging Ryman all the way in the open to try and force Doppel into the center, and Doppel is fully dotted right now. He's dispelling himself immediately. Alpro trying to go for the Cyclones. He does land it on the Shadow Dance of Ryman, who has to trigger that immediately. There's the smoke bomb coming down into Swapsy. He doesn't even need to portal out of that. Not a lot of pressure. There's the Hex on the Gizmo. Nice dispel. He didn't cheap shot Alpro in time, so he did dispel the Hex. There's the blind on the Gizmo, but the sap is going to be DR'd if he does get it out. Starfire's being spammed here. He's not going to be able to get the sap. He doesn't have Dance, and he does have Fairy Fire. Now Gizmo finally coming out of the blind, going to throw out some Riptides of his own. There's the grounding. There's the Kidney 4CC onto Gizmo, and the Fear's onto Swapsy. He's kind of in a bad position. He has to portal to get back. He gets feared on his portal, though. He's going to be able to reconvene with Swapsy here shortly, and there's the nice Shadow Fear onto Ryman. Doppel dispels that immediately. There's the clone onto Arcasia. He's going to unbound Will that. Without UA on himself, he was able to do that kind of greedily, and now the Solar Beam coming out. Unfortunately, kind of I don't know, it did land on the Doppel, just not getting a lot of pressure just yet. And he's going to be able to sit through that. He didn't have to use his stone form, didn't have to trinket, but I like that attempt for the early damage, and it is starting to pay off there. Arcasia and Ryman are starting to rot here to 50% HP. Star Surge is coming. Arcasia with the sack pet, trying to go for a CC again. Kidney shot on Gizmo for CC. Swapsy taking a bit of damage here. There's the Haunt. Drain Soul coming out. Ryman trying to do whatever he can at this point here onto Gizmo, actually. He's not completely dotted right now. There's the Shadow Dance on Gizmo. There's the Garrote follow-up, but Gizmo managed to dispel the dots off himself, so he's going to be okay. He throws the Windwalk Totem. He gates across the map. He gets coiled on the gate, but again, he's just kiting from one side of the map to the other, forcing Ryman to go in the open, get cloned, get rooted. He can't connect. Doppel spamming Purge, going for the Flame Shocks, though, trying to pressure Gizmo while Ryman connect. So really got offensive play, I feel, from Doppel here, but he is sacrificing quite a bit of mana to do it. Arcasia gets locked out on the UA. He's going for the Fear onto Swapsy. He lands the full Fear. He's fully dotted, though. I'd imagine breaks here shortly. There's the Rupture onto Gizmo. He gets locked on the Healing Rain. He was trying to set up that Healing Rain preemptively for the Kidney Shot, but there's the Kidney Shot with no Healing Rain. He's got the Drain Soul on him. He's dipping to about half HP. There's the Dark Soul Haunt. He doesn't get locked on it. It connects onto Gizmo. He's going to have to Stone Form all of those dots off, and there's the Fear onto Alpro, trying to lock down any Cyclones from him, but the RLS is starting to rot. They do have the dots on the Doppel, dipping him to about half HP at this point. Arcasia, there's the Death Coil onto Gizmo. Ryman trying to connect with his partner. There's the Haunt, comes crashing in. There's the Fear onto Gizmo. Spirit Link comes down as an answer, and he pre-Spirit Link the Shadow Dance. Really good read from Gizmo out of that Death Coil. He's going to be able to escape this swap with his trinket intact, and now Ryman into the full clone. Unfortunately, fully dotted, so they're going to lose a lot of pressure from that, but without dampening, I don't imagine they want that early kill. It's more of a RNG lock chance at this point for the LSD2, and now Gizmo has to use his Ascendance. It's going to be able to heal himself behind the pillar and heal his team through out of LOS with the AoE healing, but there's the Solar Beam onto Doppel. Unfortunately, it breaks from damage, but his team is rotting, and now he has to use his own Ascendance. He's going to pop the NS Greater Healing Wave. He's going for a Hex. He lands the Hex onto Swapsy. He gets dispelled immediately, though, from Alpro, so really good dispels this game. And now the Trent roots are coming out into Ryman. Nice double Shadow Fury. Doppel positioned in the back here. Might go for a drink even, I would imagine, maybe shortly. Throws the Cloudburst Totem, but Swapsy with a good read on the drink. Throws his pet immediately onto Gizmo to stop him from trying to go from a drink at all. Arcasia throwing the Fears out, positioning defensively at this point. Ryman trying to push in. He has Cloak Vanish. He has all of his defensives available, but he does have Haunt on him. He's taking quite a bit of free damage, I feel, at this point. I don't think he should be taking this much damage. He's connected onto Alpro, not really accomplishing much. Immediately swapping over to Swapsy, who's trying to fake the kick with that Haunt, and now defensive Shadow Step. I like that play. Just recover. Doppel's mana is actually in a worse place than Gizmo's this game, so they're trying to recover, wait for the dampening game, obviously, and pull back. Kiting across the map. There's a clean re-stealth for Ryman as well. Let's see who he chooses to open on. Trinket's available for everyone on the LSD2. There's not really a vulnerability. Starfire's coming out into Arcasia. He does throw the CS out. There's the cheap shot into Gizmo, but he's not dotted. Ryman's just trying to solo him behind the pillar with the Arcasia into a full clone. He's going to be fine. Alpro gets kidneyed, though, on his clone, and Gizmo gets cheap shot. The dots are going to get loaded up from Arcasia. There's the Dark Soul Death Coil, trying to do as much damage as he can with the Hex on a Swapsy. It does get dispelled, and Gizmo gates out of there. He's going to be okay on this other side of the map. Gizmo always reacting properly, always getting to his gateway when it's available, and getting across the map. Now Doppel, though, with the offensive purge, is trying to get Gizmo behind here with the full Fear onto Alpro. That's the kind of cross CC they need when they want to get a kill on Gizmo, the rest of the Shaman of the LSD2. Now the clone into Ryman, it's DR'd, giving Gizmo more time. Now Swapsy with the Dark Soul out of that is going to start loading up the entire RLS here shortly. Doppel in the center of the map getting kited because he has to follow Ryman, and now they can kind of swap to him, force his mana even more. He's dipped to 70,000 mana. Now the Solar Beam onto Arcasia. Star Surge has come in. He has to use the Dark Regen. He has to use the Hellstone, and that was the NS as well. That was a lot of cooldowns coming out from the RLS. Alpro into the Kidney Shot. Ryman should be okay. Still has his Cloak, still has his Vanish. Arcasia is fully dotted. Doppel just throwing out the Riptides. He needs to maybe dispel a little bit more. I feel like he's spamming the Purges, staying offensive, and not staying ahead on the dots, which might end up backfiring as we go into dampening. The Lava Burst trying to come out there. He's not going to be able to get it. Clones under Ryman, just locking him down. A nice CS under Arcasia's UA, but Gizmo now into the full Chief Shot. There's the Shadow Dance. They desperately need to peel this, but it's just not happening. There's the clone onto Ryman. He does get locked out on it. Gizmo in a lot of trouble into the half kidney. Might have to trinket this for the Spirit Link. There's the Hex under Swaps. He had to Unbound Will. Now the coil follow up on onto Gizmo with the Gouge onto Alpro. He's trying to go for that Cyclone. Finally lands it onto Arcasia, who is locked out on Fear. Gizmo with the Aura Mastery should be okay to top himself here. But he is taking quite a bit of damage. He does throw the Tremor preemptively here, trying to avoid the Fear, but Arcasia got locked out on the Fear, so a little bit of a wasted Tremor there. Not that it really matters. The RLS is going to be dotting everyone, so the Fears are going to break, so it's not a big deal, but the Tremor is now down for Gizmo, but he's managed to recover, got to the gateway when it came off cooldown, kited across the map, and now he's going for a drink here, I would imagine. He's trying to drop combat. as Doppel has kind of evened out on mana. There's the drink finally for Gizmo, and Arcasia in the Cyclone kind of not predicting his drink from Gizmo, and he actually is getting a significant amount of mana, almost full. And that's a big deal when we're moving into dampening. But now the smoke bomb coming out from Ryman to try and answer that greedy drink, but they're not accomplishing it. There's the haunt onto Swapsy. He gets the Earth Shield. The Riptide comes out. Gizmo's in no pressure, but Doppel going for the drink. And now Swapsy with the mistake has no pet out to stop that drink. So we've got a clean reset going into dampening. And it could be anyone's game at this point. Trinket not available for Ryman is the most significant disadvantage if they do manage to land a bash with no feint up. Maybe globaling him while he overextends, because he is pushing in for Gizmo, but he's fully dotted. He kills the healing stream. The Trents are chasing him, keeping him in combat, so that's good. And there's Arcasia gets locked out by the Solar Beam, but I feel like when we're moving into dampening, they should be using that on Gizmo more. To try and make him fall more behind. And now the cheap shot onto Gizmo with the Shadow Dance. They need to peel it. The Cyclone comes out, but it doesn't land onto anyone. It appears that Arcasia got locked onto the Haunt. Gizmo into the DR cheap shot. He might just want to use a Spirit Link to answer the damage. Instead, throwing the Windwalk down. Doppel purging him instantly, trying to keep off whatever Riptides and Earth Shields he can. And Arcasia is taking a bit of rot damage because of Doppel's offensive play. Now the Coil onto Gizmo, though. The Clone onto Ryman. He should be able to live this just fine. He does dispel the dots off himself. Nice use of the Hellstone and Battlemaster when he was UA silenced, and now gating again across the map. Ryman realizing the situation, he has to chase, and that's going to force Doppel to have to heal inefficiently here. And now Ryman into the half clone. Arcasia taking quite a bit of damage. Nice dispel though from Doppel, removing all the dots on him. Now he's going for the Fear, gouge onto Alpro, trying to stop whatever CC and damage that he can. Double Shadow Fear landed onto Ryman as well as Arcasia. Doppel's should be okay. He's in the back here with Arcasia. Ryman taking quite a bit of damage. Throws a kidney onto Swapsy. The Haunt connects to him, but with no CC onto Gizmo and full mana, I don't think